Hello, and welcome to episode 18 of Cosplay Photo Critique. Man, I feel like we're really getting up there in the numbers now. Chugging along here. So this episode, we are joined by a friend and longtime viewer and just general awesome person, Atelier Heidi. Heidi, thanks
Hello.
for joining us tonight. It's a pleasure having you on. You were a person Sarah and I had talked about having on like early in the stages of having
hmm
on the critique. So uh,
Oh, thank you.
yeah,
That's awesome to hear that.
yeah, because when we were first talking about like wanting to have cosplayers on for the critique, you were one of the very first names of people that we wanted to have on. So it just took us a while to get there.
Well, thank you. It took me a while to develop also.
Hey, and such is life. Um, Let me get up my questions and let's jump into finding out some information about Heidi.
All right. I got my cat open now. Sorry if I seem a little distracted. I'm just getting my windows
No
ready.
worries, no worries. That
I'm
is
here.
like I feel like me in the entirety of doing this. I'm always like back and forth between windows and trying to pay attention to 10 things at once. So it's uh it's complicated. So no one will blame you if you look distracted. I feel like probably half the time people are just like, what is Andrew looking at?
We're looking at like 10 million things at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I'm trying to manage all of this at the same time and doing it poorly. Okay, so less about me and being distracted and more about you, Heidi. So I know you've been cosplaying for quite some time, but how long have you actually been cosplaying, and what ended up getting you into into cosplaying?
Technically, I've been cosplaying for about 6 years. I started in the fall of 2012,
That's about the same
when I
time
was
I started
actually
shooting cosplay photography.
and shooting cosplay
Yeah.
photography. Okay, so I was
No,
thinking
I
about
was
this.
saying that's the same time I started shooting
Oh,
cosplay.
that
I
is the same
would
time.
start it at the exact
Well,
same time as you started cosplaying.
okay.
Cute.
Leading I was thinking leading into the show, I was thinking about it and I realized that I've actually owned my camera for longer than I've been cosplaying. I got the camera like the year before, and the reason why I got it was because I was already doing a lot of different types of art. I was a painter and I was doing like charcoal drawings and things. And
Oh.
at the time, I didn't have a nice camera, I was doing like large works and I didn't have the ability to scan that digitally, and so I was taking photographs of my work and to save it digitally. um and so that was like why I had originally like decided to get this camera and ended up using it, not right away, but I was I kind of was taking my own cosplay photos from the beginning, but not very well. I only really started this concentrated effort to focus on cosplay photography in 2018. But I had a background of lots and lots of art classes, including some digital, like, design type of classes. I had taken a photography class in college that was darkroom photography with film, 35 millimeter film. So I
Nice.
know how to load it into the reels. I know how to develop it in all of the different chemical
It's better than me.
processes. I know how to print it. So that was how I learned how to do photography, actually,
That's awesome.
rather than
So
digitally.
what ended up getting you into cosplay in general though? Like
I was just a nerd attending conventions, and so I realized I've always been an artist for my entire life. I've always been like doing just any type of creative thing, working with my hands, and so I had that background, and I had found out about conventions and really didn't start going until like 2010 maybe, and realized that there was a place where I could go where I could wear my art on my body and like show it off and walk around and be like, hey, look, I made this, and interact with people. I had never had that experience before in any other artistic medium. So, like, there's gallery showings when you're doing other types of art, but it doesn't have the same level of interactiveness. And so when I discovered conventions, I was just immediately like extremely interested in doing cosplay and doing costumes that were outside of cosplay, because I've been interested in this visual design in all types of facets for my whole life. So I have like a huge background of different artistic pursuits and like some training, but like kind of like cross disciplinary that I've like compiled all of this to like apply it to cosplay photography, and it seems to be working. But yeah, it's really been like 2018 that I decided, hey, I need to be actively taking my own cosplay photos, because if you're trying to do cosplay like professionally in any capacity, or just like to be out like posting every day new stuff, you pretty much have to be able to produce your own photos in some form or fashion just to be able to keep up with it. And so whether you're just doing cell phone shots, or whether you have a friend that can take your photo and you're editing them yourself, or whether you're taking your own photo like with a tripod and a trigger or whatever, like I just realized that there was going to be a need for that, for me to be able to document and produce the amount of stuff that I want to. And so yeah, this is just, I've always been like kind of a one-woman show in terms of art, and like taking on like kind of every angle of learning to do the makeup and the wigs and the costuming and the props, and just trying to do it all. Set design. Oh yeah, I have a background in theater, so my actual college degree is in theatrical design. That is what I have a BFA in theatrical design, and so that is actually not a costuming degree. A lot of people think it's a costuming degree. I took like one sewing class. I think, yeah, 1.5 sewing classes like the whole time I was in college. What I actually learned was theatrical set design, theatrical lighting design, which was a really big one, theatrical sound design, where I was learning other Adobe programs like Audition. And anyway, so I have this like weird artistic background of like anything you can think of that is now I am designing my own sets for photography, for cosplay in my home, to where I'm producing my own costumes, my own props, my own backdrops, my own photos, and then like kind of doing the whole project myself. Oh, but I should have started with this at the beginning, but my husband is my collaborative partner. And so he's the one who's pressing the shutter in most of the photos that I release. I do all of the editing, I do all of the post-processing, but he's there. So he's collaborating with me to create the compositions, the concepts. And so they are his photos, and that he's the one who's technically handling the camera and composing the shots. But
the team effort
is totally collaborative, and usually it's my designs are going into it, and then he's like there to snap it.
That's awesome that you guys do that.
Yeah.
But now all the set design stuff makes sense. I was like, damn, how does Heidi know how to do all this shit? I was like, Heidi knows how to do everything. But I was like, well, because also your lighting is really good. And I was like,
thank you.
What is going on? Makes sense now.
I've literally taken lighting design classes. They were not for photography, but the concept
that still applies.
Yeah, they're 4 3-dimensional spaces where you are lighting characters and actors and props, and you're thinking about angles, and you're learning about how harsh lighting versus diffuse lighting, different angles and colors, all of that. Like, I've taken classes on that. I've done homework assignments on that. And so that's why I think that it's easy for me to jump into photography. Like, I feel weird because I have very little formal training in photography, but I have tons of training and experience in like just all different types of relevant artistic fields.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like, yeah, I learned Photoshop years and years ago, and now I'm learning how to do it for photography. Different stuff, but it's a lot of the same principle.
It all applies to each other, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I love how much that question ballooned out. Like, there's just so much. No, it's totally fine. It's just like so much information and getting packed into that. It was great. Kind of feels like a simple question based on that. response. But in terms of shooting, do you prefer to do location or convention shooting? Like as the cosplayer, do you prefer it?
So now that I do have the freedom to handle my own photos, I handle location shoots and conventions. It actually changed the way I do conventions in general. Because it used to be I would go to a con and I would use that time to take as many photos as possible with as many people as possible to try to guarantee that I would get, hopefully
Good
some
photos.
photos back that I liked. Just trying to like cast the net wide and kind of shoot with as many people, get as many options as I could. Now that I have the ability to produce my own photos to my own specs and desires, my convention experience has totally changed in that now getting photos is like, oh, okay, we'll get some quick shots here and there, but realistically, I'm going there to interact with people. So I care way less about convention photo shoots unless I'm shooting with a cosplayer friend that I won't see elsewhere. I won't have another opportunity. Or I'm shooting with a photographer friend that I won't see elsewhere and won't have another opportunity. So basically, my approach to conventions has changed in that I only want to prioritize other people at conventions because who knows when I'll see those people again. And so whether it's shooting with friends who are also in costume alongside me or shooting with other photographers, that's what I want to do there. And then when I'm on location, it's like, okay, I have, for the most part, control over where we go, and hopefully like can choose the lighting, can choose the right time to get the lighting that I need, and etc. And like all of the control that brings. And so location shoots are always going to be like yielding the best results for those reasons. But photography has been amazing because now I feel like I have my conventions back of just like being with my friends and only doing the photo work like to be with friends and not just to be doing the photos.
On jumping kind of off that, how do you go about approaching your location shoots then? Like, what kind of is your thought process when you're like picking locations, looking for locations, deciding like, all those kind of things?
Well, you have a little bit of experience with that with me. Andrew recently came and visited, and his wife, Stephanie, as well, came and visited the Seattle area and spent a couple days with us here. And we went out on a location shoot, two actually. And so that was fun. I do my location scouting online. I use Google Maps for a lot of searching, plus just like general searching like trail hiking websites and stuff. I live in Washington State in Seattle, or in the Seattle area, kind of on the northeast side. And so I have thankfully a huge selection of natural, beautiful spots out here to choose from. And so I've been looking around at like hiking websites that will tell you exactly how far the spots are from the parking lot, so you know how far you need to trek in costume. And like all of the information. So I do all my search online, and then
but when it was up for you, part of
Huh?
the huge problem with so many of the things that I was looking up is it's just like, oh, you're gonna have to do like a beautiful location, but you're gonna have to walk like 6 miles to out and back to get to the spot, and you're just like, okay, next location.
Different spot.
And then trying to hopefully pick a spot that's within an hour of my house, because more than that is just like with the costumes and the time involved, it's adds extra levels of difficulty. The farthest I've ever traveled for a location shoot was like 7.5 hours.
Yikes.
In Texas, we drove into the desert, basically in like West Texas, and did a photo shoot as Ray in the sand dunes. Ray
Oh,
from
I
Star
remember
Wars.
those photos. Those were so cool.
That was before we were doing our own photography, but Jared did videography for that set because I was focusing more on YouTube at the time. Yeah, I was doing video production too. That's kind of what I was focusing on before I was doing photography, was videography. And so Jared was shooting photos, and then we brought 2 photographers with us.
Awesome.
And I just pitched it to them. I was like, it was right before we moved away. And so I was like, hey, let's do this weird location shoot, last hurrah thing. We'll drive, we'll get a hotel, which we did. We stayed overnight, and we woke up at like before dawn. I woke up at I think 4 a.m. to get into costumes so that we could be at the sand dunes at dawn, get our dawn photos in to guarantee that we would have nice lighting.
That's so cool.
And then drove home.
Yeah, that's intense.
intense.
I've always wanted to do a sunrise shoot, but like finding the cosplayer that's gonna wanna get up and do their makeup
that
and
early
get
and put makeup on.
Because like it's not that big. Like I don't ever have to worry about anything. I just prep my gear beforehand and then just plop it in the car, and then I'm just like, okay, I'm ready to go. I
could do it for an on location, but when people are like, "Do you want to do a sunrise shoot at a con?" I'm like,
so
no, not at a con. No.
Hell no.
I set up.
I tried one time at Dragon Con. I had a 5 a.m. shoot scheduled at Dragon Con. It was my second Dragon Con. I was so drunk. I was not even like hungover. I was still drunk, and my alarm kept going off, and I just turned it off. And I texted the guy, and I was like, "No, sorry." And he was like, "It's okay."
I tried to do a sunrise shoot. So there was a skiing event that I was going to, and we were gonna try and get up early to do a sunrise shoot for the skiing thing. And I got there at like sunrise, and none of the skiers were there, and I was just like,
oh really?
Because it also took me like an hour and a half to drive there too, so like I was just like, so glad I did that. It was fine. It ended up like we ended up getting a lot of pictures over the course of the day, but I was just like, man, I could have slept in like another hour and a half at least. I was so bummed. Okay, let's see. Where was I in terms of
what? Sorry, guys.
It's fine. So this is where we go at this point. What do you look for when you're picking a cosplay to make? Like, what kind of things attract you to a cosplay?
To make?
Yes.
Well, there's a connection with the character in some capacity. Whether that is with the character's personality or the series as a whole, and I thought that one would suit me the best physically, or I just really love the design. Like any of those are valid reasons to me to like pick the character. There's the general overview is someone that I want to generally be able to portray them well. Like I know that, cosplay anybody you want to, but I like to be able to look somewhat like the characters that I pick for the most part. And then if not, it's because I absolutely love that character, and so I'm just doing it anyway. And I fully support that too. But I often pick ones that I'm like, oh well, I think I could look like that, because to a large extent that is my goal. I'm trying to make something that's as immersive and realistic through all of my artistic in every capacity available to me, through the photography, through the set design, through the costume design, etc. So yeah.
So I know you're like technique queen to me. So
thanks.
And I feel like I don't know if maybe I read this. I don't know. I could have sworn I read on one of your Instagram posts that you always try to like include a new technique that you've never done before. Like when you were working on like Winter Zelda, you were like, I've never done gold leafing before, so I'm like, why the hell not? I'm gonna try it. Is there anything in any upcoming costumes that you're looking forward to learning or trying for the first time without totally giving away what you're doing potentially?
I want to incorporate more prop work and more prosthetics. Ooh. I have some training in that through theater. I have some theatrical makeup courses that I've done, and it's low res stuff for the most part. It's not like film quality anything, but I know how to sculpt and cast prosthetics, and
Oh, that's cool.
I've done that. I've made full latex face masks. There's a costume that you'll never see me post photos of again. I did.
What?
I did the female Titan from Attack on Titan. Like,
No, you didn't. Really?
Yeah. It's not good, but whatever.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's amazing.
Yeah, there's one answer.
That's awesome. Nice.
Final question before we head on into the critique is, do you have any advice that you would give to people? It could be, I'm leaving this really open to your total interpretation, whether it's towards photographers or cosplayers, a beginner or otherwise.
Okay. I have a two-part answer for this then. My answer for cosplayers is do your own photos. Absolutely do them. Do them with whatever you have available to you. Do them with a bed sheet in your bedroom tacked to the wall and your cell phone on a tripod. Do whatever you can to start doing your own photos, no matter how ghetto and amateur your setup is at the beginning. Like, do it. That you will not regret it, because it takes a long time to probably get to the point where you're getting results that you're happy with, but there is no replacement for having the artistic control over your own photos, where you can find your best angles and light yourself in the right ways, and then Photoshop yourself the way that you want to present yourself, I guess. Which to taste. That's a different conversation, but do it. Do your own photos. For photographers, talk to your subjects when you're shooting them. Interact with your cosplayers. Find ways to put them at ease, which I know doesn't come naturally for everybody, especially nerds who are awkward or whatever. Find ways to go out of your way to make
not awkward at all
your subject feel comfortable and open up, and then you will get better results. Because I always feel awkward when I'm shooting with someone who isn't communicating with me very much, who's just like, I know how to pose. I can stand there and get my angles ready and do my best. But if I'm not being told, okay, now chin up and go a little bit this way or something, because I can't see exactly what I'm doing, I'm just trying, then I don't always feel confident that the photographer knows how to get the best out of me in that moment. So there you go.
Some thoughts kind of just to continue off that for a hot second is that I know for me, I always talk, even if I feel like I don't need to talk while I'm shooting, I try and talk and add things, and I'm always like, oh yeah, this is looking good. Oh, I like how this is looking. Even if that isn't true, I will say those things.
Just generic praise, it helps a lot.
Yeah, because it's just letting you know that I'm involved in this process, and I'm including you in this feedback. It can be just the most generic dribble ever. Just keep yourself talking, because otherwise the cosplayer can just feel a little clammed up.
Well, someone most people have told me, they're at the end of shooting, they're I love shooting with you because you're always just making these happy sounds during the shoot. I mean, Heidi probably knows and Andrew knows, but yeah, and then I don't. Also, I am genuinely excited, but also because I know what it's like to work with someone who is not responsive, and you're am I really that bad?
Yeah, oh no, is something wrong? Is it?
Do I look ratchet?
Yeah, especially. Most cosplayers are amateur models. Very, very few people
100%.
have a high level of experience in posing in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And so especially when you're working with someone who is not extremely confident and who does not have a high level of experience, which is most people.
That's 98% of the time.
Yeah.
And that's not to say anything bad. That's just
that's just the majority of the people out there that you're going to be working with. And the more you can do to hype them up and pull that confidence out of them, the better the results will be. And so anything, I always find it extremely reassuring when a photographer, as long as it's not so over the top that I feel like they're just blowing me up, but when the photographer is oh yeah, nice, oh that looks great, or whatever, and like are kind of giving me encouragement about what I'm doing. Hopefully when they are enjoying what I'm doing, or directing me like, okay, try it this way if it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates a stronger sense of confidence for me as the model. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, this is working. And then you get more of that relaxed, like more genuine expression and more comfortable, and yeah, just a better photo overall.
Two things that I want to say off of that, just a real quick add on. What I try and do usually to like make things less awkward and kind of almost be humorous in a way is pose what you're going to make the cosplayer pose as. Like if you're comfortable with doing that pose, it can kind of like break the ice in a kind of humorous way, especially if you're a guy doing a feminine pose. It just lets, and it also kind of lets them know that it lets the cosplayer know like, oh, this is okay. It's not like that weird like to be doing this. It's just, kind of just adds a comfort level. And crap, what was it? I always try to make my shoots kind of have like a hangout atmosphere to them. I don't ever want them to be super serious, because that usually makes the photos not turn out as good.
100% agree.
It sometimes will make the shoot go slower, or it sometimes has negative side effects, but I find over time and it has a far more net positive.
Yeah, I just feel like the reward of like having a more fun and comfortable experience is better anyway. Yeah. So
I think it always gives me better results as a model when I'm happy, when I'm comfortable, because when I'm not, you can see it in the photos. No matter how much I'm trying to overcome it, when I'm in a better mood, I'm going to be a better model. Period. I think that's true for most people, because you can see the tension.
Okay, that went long. So let's.
Sorry.
That was fun.
I have a lot of fun.
That was fun though. So let's get a few housekeeping things out of the way. My developer friend that created the submission form is working on doing some changes to it. So I know I had mentioned kind of allowing people to view photos soon on their end. It's coming. My friend that worked on it is a busy individual, so we just haven't gotten to it yet, or he hasn't gotten to it yet. So it's coming. I can't tell you when specifically it'll be in place, but
eventually,
sometime. As well as these things will be outlined in the future critiques as well. But just reiterating, only one photo per critique. So if you're submitting multiples, I'm only going to pick one of those to be in the critique. And if you're a cosplayer submitting, I absolutely need permission from the photographer, and you just need to be explicit about that and mention that in the notes when you submit. Otherwise, I will not include it. Do other things. Continuing to look for guest suggestions. So if you have any guests that you would like to see on the stream, feel free to pop them in the link that I just posted in chat. Kind of couple things I wanted to address, because I was talking with a friend recently, and we kind of got into discussing this, is composite / special effects. One of my friends was asking me why I didn't do this in my own work, and I just thought it was an interesting perspective, because I know we briefly talked about this idea on the stream before, of kind of, we haven't really brought on many composite photographers, and people would like to have those people on, and not saying we won't, it just the possibility hasn't brought itself up, and kind of was thinking about it in terms of my own work and why I don't do it, and just the pure amount of time that it takes to do said composites. And it's both for Sarah and I both very much have the ability to do composites. It's just a conscious choice not to delve into that. So just because we don't do it doesn't mean that we don't have a strong grasp as to how they're done, and what it takes to make a good composite. Just wanted to kind of air that out again. And then something I noticed in terms of submissions lately is that I'm seeing a fair amount of people submitting their photos in Adobe RGB color space versus sRGB. That's not particularly wrong, but it was a topic that I kind of felt like bringing up since I don't know how much people know about this. And if they're consciously choosing to work in Adobe RGB. Generally speaking, this is my personal viewpoint. There's no reason to work in Adobe RGB unless you are working in a workflow that is going to be entirely Adobe RGB. So for context, sRGB is the color space of the web. Adobe RGB is an expanded color space. Most monitors cannot show the full spectrum of Adobe RGB color. And if you upload it on the web, if you're uploading an Adobe RGB color space photo to the web, it will convert to sRGB, and it will often do a bad job, and your colors will look washed out and not good. So I'm curious, and maybe this, if anyone in chat has like an interesting perspective as to why they're choosing to stick with Adobe RGB, I'd really be interested to know. But for the most part, I would say if you're working your photos, unless there's a very specific reason you want Adobe RGB, you should be working in sRGB. And I kind of feel like that's probably the case for a lot of the people that are submitting, and they're submitting in Adobe RGB, especially because when I convert them in Photoshop, there is next to no color change when I change them from Adobe to sRGB in Adobe's converter for it. And I have a monitor that allows me to see the entire Adobe RGB color gamut. So if I can't see that change in Photoshop, just don't bother with it. It's not worth the extra effort and pain and file size that Adobe RGB is gonna cause for you. But once again, I'd be interested to hear if anyone else has a different perspective on that, and then I could bring that up. But for now, I would say don't work in Adobe RGB. It's pointless. Okay, sorry, just wanted to get that out of the way, because I think I had like 4 people submit in Adobe RGB this time, and I was just like, what is up with that, guys? It's usually how you're check the color space on your camera settings if you're confused as to like what your camera's taking it in, because your camera, usually you can pick the color space whether it's Adobe RGB or sRGB. So yeah. Okay. Last thing before we get into the chat or into the critique is feel free to chat and critique along with us. We're always following the chat and what you guys have to say, so please contribute, and we'll try and implement what you guys are saying. And it makes the chat the whole stream a lot more fun. And also, just want to reiterate this. I will probably do this all the time because it's obnoxious, if you're enjoying the stream, if you consider subscribing or donating, that would be greatly appreciated. Put a lot of effort into making this happen, so any and all your donations and subs are greatly appreciated. Heidi was a big help for that. She gift subbed a ton of people over the last couple streams, so huge thanks to you for all those. Yeah, that was awesome.
Makes it worth it.
We were like, wow.
yeah, and you know what to do when we get to certain photos, people that are subscribers. Okay, let's jump into critiquing. This is taking a while, so let's get into the meat here. So we're gonna go to this first photo, and this one is from Alex. Sarah, do you wanna take us away on this photo?
Yeah. Okay, so funny story. Alex is actually one of my friends, and he's the one who is usually assisting me on my location shoots here in Virginia. So when I saw that I was critiquing his photo first, I was like, yeah, time to rip him a new one. But I don't even think he's on right now because he's coming home from work. He's like, no, I can't even see you just like freaking bash my photo.
He'll just get to watch it in the VOD then. Sad day.
That's what I said.
No opportunity to defend himself.
Nope, he can't. He's not here. So everything sucks. No, just kidding. So Also, to be fair, I have not had time to look these photos ahead of time, unlike usual. So if I'm a little slower than usual, just FYI.
Same.
We we suck.
Life's
I'm
been
sorry,
crazy, guys.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. So got some Persona 5. So my first thought was like, I think this is a really interesting concept, like making it all red. I don't know a ton about Persona 5, but I do know they go into like this alternate realm, and red is a very big color in like the game design I've noticed. So I think it's cool that he was able to get this like full like red environment, but I can't tell if it was, I mean, I think it was lit, but and then he filled it in artificially. I'm not really sure, but I kind of wish that the subjects in the photo were kind of like blended in more, because right now I kind of feel like they were cut out and like put on top of it.
Yeah, same.
I think it's a cool concept. Like I get what he was going for, because he is someone who has, I think he has like a studio like in his basement or something from what I recall, and like
Damn.
he experiments with lighting a lot. So he is someone who knows how to do like studio lighting really well, in my opinion. So I get what he was going for, but I'm not sure if it's quite there yet.
Yeah, I also like when I first looked at this picture, I was like, wow, this is really striking. I think if it was just like a little bit better implemented, and it didn't read quite like the photo was just like cut out and pasted on black or on red, if it felt more like integrated into the photo, like kind of the background was almost this like glowing red color, like it could be really cool. But
Oh, there definitely was red gel.
yeah, like
It's so clean though. I don't understand.
no, this is cut out. This is cut out. Like it's pretty clear.
Is it?
Yeah. This is cut out.
I was looking at that, and
I don't know.
I do.
The
Feathers
the
though?
lighting in the reflection of the table has all been colored changed to this red as well.
Oh yeah, that's not that hard.
Well, okay, but to be as thorough, I don't know. It looks like there were red lights here used, but then it was modified in Photoshop to like adjust the levels, and I feel like there's it's a little bit just overpowering, either in terms of the composition, or like the way that the blacks and the detail of the figure is lost.
Yeah. So I can almost guarantee that this is cut out. Just to clear that up. This looks like classic like refine edge slash like select and mask like stuff. Like this is cut out, and that's fine. I don't have any problem particularly with it.
It is. If you look at the shoe.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's definite areas where this is clearly cut out to me. Like that was never any question to me. But I'm not totally sure about the red backlight though, because I feel like it could be either or things. There could be some red light in it. There might not be. It could be just like blending. But either way, I really like how like the idea of it. I just think the execution needs a bit of work. Like it being such pure, like straight up red color, just kind of like it doesn't like read super well for me.
In terms of like practical improvements, I feel like having the main torso of the figure is more or less dead center right now. I feel like perhaps like repositioning it. Because it feels like the lower half diagonally of the image is where all of this information of the figure and the setting exists, and then the upper half is this like bright red. But it's like slightly off from being like a clear diagonal. I guess I just wish that like the image has been shifted to where that the diagonal between like the feathers from the hat that are going down the figure, and then to like the way that the foot protrudes forward is creating this sense of diagonal. I guess I just wish that had been like positioned more to the left of the image with more negative space on the right of the image in order to give like an equal visual weight to the extremely like striking red backdrop versus the actual information that you're supposed to be looking at in the image.
I agree.
I also just think maybe remove those foreground elements.
Yeah, I
They're
don't really
going for
feel like
this
they're
really
serving a
striking
purpose.
image. Like, I don't know if I totally agree with where you're going with it, Heidi, that I want more balance, but I think almost you can give the image more balance too just by taking them out.
Yeah.
I see what you mean, because that technique of having the extra stuff is to create a sense of depth in the foreground.
Mm-hmm.
But the technique with the extreme like flat red backdrop is at
Mm-hmm.
odds with that. It's the opposite concept of having this extremely flat lack of depth. And so the two different concepts and techniques I think are at odds here. Or it would be stronger if you would pick one or the other, like
Mhm.
either create a sense of depth with a whole environment that has something in the backdrop, or remove the foreground and the background to where she just exists on this red plane. And I think that would be much stronger.
The more I
Agreed.
think about it too, the this kind of red super graphic-y look is I think it's really interesting, but I almost say just lay into it even more if that's the way you're gonna go. Like, make it feel graphic. Like, maybe include some like text in the background. Like, just, you're taking it out of the space necessarily of feeling like a straight up photo. So just just play into it. I also would
It's
definitely
more of an
like
art
to
print.
see, make it feel like that red is glowing, have some sort of like blur to the edges of it, and kind of really kind of make it feel like it has a lot of like the colors almost coming out at you, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah, because right now it's very flat. There's like the red's not adding any dimension to it really, so
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on this.
Other simple thought fix. There's just too much headroom in this photo the way it's taken.
Mhm.
Just crop it down a little bit, and I think that's a
Agreed.
minor but easy fix. You guys got any thoughts on this one before we move on to the next shot?
Nope.
Cool. And then before we transition, I want to give a shout out to Kelvin. Thanks for the sub there. Really appreciate it. Okay, now let's move on to the second image. This one is by Alexandria Lee, who I think is in chat. At least I saw her earlier.
She's in chat.
Yeah.
They're on those hype emojis.
Heidi, do you want to take us off on this one?
I am ready. This is extremely striking, obviously, when you look at that. And it has that classic, like, Alexandria Lee, like, amount of detail and depth to across the whole image that I really, really like.
Yeah, it definitely has that, like, if I didn't see it was an Alexandria Lee shot, I like, if there was no like identifier and I just saw it randomly on the internet, I still feel like I would like be like, oh, that's one of Alexandria Lee's shots. Like, it just,
Yeah, it has that, she has a distinct style, and I like that. So I love a lot of what's going on here. I like that the way that the different elements are working together, in terms of, it looks like probably like exactly where she's standing, like this little portion of wherever she's standing is probably naturally shot, and then the rest is composited. I don't know, I'm kind of guessing with that. Maybe the backdrop is a part of it, but, or part of the background that's clearly been reflected. I can certainly see that the kind of not holographic, kaleidoscopic is the word I'm looking for, like these mirrored reflections, is very unsettling in an intentional way. But I think that having the focal point of the image, I think it's just kind of in an odd position overall.
I wish it was like
Like,
shifted down just a little bit. Like,
right. I kind of feel the same way. Or I like everything in the image exactly as it is. If it were perhaps expanded above to be like a square crop image or something like that, to where it would be a little bit more balanced in terms of where her head and this center, like very starkly defined central focus point is. I feel like it should be shifted somewhere, like slightly more to, like, it's kind of in an odd position with the rule of thirds where it's not exactly on any of like the ideal axes. So if it could be like shifted slightly to the left or slightly down, or just to make a choice that repositions it slightly. But I also like everything else that's going on in the image. I feel like you could just kind of expand those edges to create the composition you need.
I agree with you, Heidi. I think because we've brought this up in past critiques where like it's like almost centered, but it's like almost rule of thirds. So it's like that's why it feels like I think a little bit like discombobulating, and you want it to be one or the other. So I agree with you. It should either be centered or it should be rule of thirds.
Yeah.
So
because there's so much geometry here. I wish it had been used to the absolute advantage of like hitting those like geometrical like aesthetic points that people respond to like the most effectively.
Yeah, because I think the kaleidoscope effect is what is making like our brains wanting it. At least for me, I want it to be like centered because you have all of these lines coming in into the center towards her head, and like even the steps or whatever the heck this is that she's standing on. There's like so many lines going like in towards the image. So it's like that's cool, but it's almost kind of like not helping because all of these directional lines are making you focus in this one area that's maybe off by a little bit.
So I've got lots of thoughts. I really like the image, but I think with the understanding that like Alexandria, we dig this photo, so we're gonna just tear into this, and I got lots of thoughts for you.
Well, it's clearly
yeah, like I think the execution is really well done, but I think there's plenty to nitpick. So let's hop on that train into Nitpick Town.
God.
So this is kind of an interesting one that Sarah, I know you've mentioned at previous critiques. Yeah, I guess thanks for the donation. So, and I know in Doctor Strange the like all the buildings warp, but from my understanding, they're warping not like in a kaleidoscope, but like the buildings are legit moving. So with that understanding, like the perspective on the building should all be the same, right? Like yeah, they're weirdly warped, but like if you follow the perspective lines on the building she's standing on, they like are very different than the perspective lines of the building that is behind her. And even though like I know this is reading as you know, like this kind of kaleidoscoped effect, however, like it does, to me that is a big part of the reason why the buildings directly behind her don't feel like the real buildings. It just kind of feels like an aesthetic background that was placed in.
I can see now on the right hand side where it's clearly been like copy pasted repeated, rather the lines aren't continuous, and it's like not accurate as a perspective drawing.
Yeah, there's lots where it just doesn't flow perspectively, and that bothers me, especially
that would be a huge pain in the ass to edit that, but I believe it can be done.
Yeah, I think the thing that bothers me, like if you take the top line of like the buildings to the right, the perspective on those flows nicely, but then you look at like the first balcony, and then those lines don't match up perspective wise. So that's just weird. Also, those lines shouldn't be going downwards if the lines on the building that she's standing on are going upwards. It just doesn't make sense. Whatever. dug into that long enough.
Realistically, it doesn't make a lot of
Yeah.
sense, even though it's supposed to be fake.
So other things in terms of bringing up realism in this, I think, you know, the choice that you made here to blur the background slightly, I think throws me off quite a bit, because one, it doesn't feel much like a bokeh blur, and two, it doesn't kind of match up with the feel of the rest of the image. Like we've got kind of almost feels like a Gaussian blur, and it's uniform. So what I'd say with that is if you're gonna go that route with the background blur, you need to lean into it more with like, because like the back of what she's standing on is still perfectly in focus, and the foreground of what she's standing on it is perfectly in focus. Yet these buildings are not in focus, but they're uniformly not in focus. Like there kind of needs to be the choice of like how are you picking this focus here. Do you want, let's say you know you want to keep this, then you need to keep these buildings sharp looking, instead of this like light blur. And if you want to add the blur, you need to have that trailing depth of field. The new Photoshop, new-ish, in the blur gallery of the tilt shift, I find is a super useful feature for faking that depth of field, trailing off. So that would be some way that you could add it on. But like right now, it just doesn't read as real depth of field wise. Last but not least, in terms of this, when you add a Gaussian blur over the top of something like this, what you lose out on is the grain structure that would be in the photo. This is getting super nitpicky, but this is the shit I care about.
I was gonna bring this up actually.
Yeah, so like if you look, like I'll screen share here to kind of get like an idea here to people. Like if you look on like her leg, you can see there's a grain pattern in here. Like it's fairly, you know, there's some of that's a fabric, but some of that's a grain. That grain pattern should still be on the background. And you can fix that simply by going like a new layer, going to filter, noise, add noise. I hope so. Wait, I gotta fill it with gray. So if I fill it with gray,
I think that's one of those weird things that like people that like even like an untrained eye, they can see it even though they don't know that they're seeing it, and it looks like looks off in a way.
If you use Photoshop,
the difference between doing it and not doing it, like it will, it does matter. And like, you know, even someone who doesn't understand photo editing, I think would see the improvement. Or rather, like it helps it just hide it a little more seamlessly.
Yeah. So I just used like a gray layer, filled it with 20% noise, and then desaturated that noise, set that layer to soft light, and then you know that's going to bring that grain pattern to that background and just help it read as a little bit more believable. That's something that I always do when I'm faking a blur, is make sure that I add the grain back into it, which is kind of hilarious because this is all shit that you would never notice on Photoshop or on Facebook or Instagram when you post it. But like, that's kind of the anal shit I care about. So just kind of like a little extra step to add to the realism. And I'm also saying all this stuff because I know how much time you're putting into these composites, and that I imagine you also care. So yeah, just adding that extra bit of noise can help. What do you guys feel about the brightness of this of the photo? Like, I think.
So,
go ahead, Sarah. I've been talking.
I don't know if this really has to do with. I don't know if this really has to do with brightness. But I'm actually having a hard time like differentiating between like foreground subject and background. Like everything kind of looks like the same, which I think also may have to do with the blurring thing, but also
there's not a lot of luminance variation. There's not like a clear focal point.
Yeah.
I feel like bringing her face into a higher highlight would help again with like the visual focus, which is that's clearly where you're supposed to be looking in the photo. It's where all the lines are leading.
It's crazy because like the costume, like the cosplayer itself, like themselves, they have a ton of definition. Like there are so many different like darks and lights, but then I think because the background is kind of like flat to me, it's like not helping. I don't know. I don't really know what I'm saying. All I know is that
I totally agree.
There's no differentiation between foreground and background.
This is something I do, and I've explained this before in critique, but I think it's always useful to go over it and kind of figuring out like do you have a clear subject in terms of like luminance values in your image? So what I do is I'll duplicate the layer, blur it a bunch, and then change it to black and white. I'll screen share the result to this. And you kind of look at it and you go, is there like a clear point? And like, I think there's like the starts of it, but there's so much like of the kind of that middle gray in here, and I think it really kind of need to push the brightness of like your subject a little bit, and then darken the background a little bit, just to kind of have things pop just a little bit better.
I love this trick. When you taught this to me, I was like, whoa, that's mind blowing.
It just kind of like takes away. I dig it because it takes away like looking at the subject in terms of like you're not recognizing it for what it is. It's just blurs of color or black and white values.
You're not distracted by the color either. So
it's hard because I do really dig the photo overall. I like the lighting and the texture on the subject. I like the attempts of bringing in the kind of light from the glow onto the cosplayer. I would maybe up that a little bit more. I feel like the one that's in the cosplayer's right hand is causing more glow than the one that's in the left hand, which they feel like they should have about the same amount of glow. So maybe kind of just implement that color cast a little bit more on the one in the left hand. But other than that, other than all the things we've said,
I mean, the image is clearly very beautiful, and there's a lot of thought and a lot of excellent techniques here. I think the stuff that we mentioned would just take it up to the next level.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think the biggest thing is conceptually, this image is wonderful. And like that is perhaps the most important part. Because a concept like an image can live like on an awesome concept, and the execution's pretty darn good. There's just ways you can improve the execution, but overall I think the concept's awesome. So
agreed.
Cool.
Now that we tore into that one, I know Alexandria Lee told us to, so that's gonna be my defense. Let's move on to the next shot. This one is from Anna, and this is Heidi, in your realm of cosplayers taking photos of themselves.
Yeah, and she goes by Seattle Cosplay and lives in Seattle.
I feel like that would be weird if she went by Seattle Cosplay and was like, never lived in Seattle.
Unless she moved or something.
No, just like never ever has lived in Seattle. Just like I like Seattle. I don't know what to say. So I'm gonna take the lead on this image. I always give huge props to cosplayers that are doing like all of this on their own, because I've tried to do self-portrait stuff before, and it is so flippin' hard. So they're like, the degree of difficulty just gets magnified when you're trying to do this by yourself. Like there's some things that I would say, like making sure you get those lines even, which I actually think might be a distortion thing. I think the lines actually might be pretty good. It's just that your camera lens is distorting, so you should be able to fix that. I think that should be able to fix in post. At the top of the frame, they're a little off yet, but like that, making sure you're getting that stuff aligned becomes exponentially more difficult when you're not behind the camera while you're taking the picture. So that's awesome. I think the lighting in this image is really nice. I'm a sucker for that kind of like really soft side lighting that you get from like open shade. That said, there's some areas of the image that I think could be improved. Like my number one thing, which is a nitpicky thing but is really bothering me, is the kind of the metal square that's coming in on the side.
Yes.
I know it's a nitpicky item of the photo, but like having such a simple texture background and having that one bit interrupt it like immediately draws my eyes to it. But
luckily with a background like this, it's like a pretty easy fix though.
Yeah,
too.
no, totally. Like you could Photoshop that out, not a problem.
Yeah, but just knowing what steps to take. But yeah, I agree that getting rid of the obtrusive element on the right and kind of taking out the warp of the lines and lining them up somehow, I think would do a lot for just refining this.
Another thing I would say, and this is kind of a tendency I think that happens, is when you're starting off in photography, you tend to put when the cosplayers are against the walls, you tend to put them like directly against the wall.
It creates a stronger shadow.
Yeah, step out a little bit. You don't need to be up that close along the wall, and actually, it kind of makes it feel a little odd sometimes. It doesn't particularly bother me in terms of like cosplayer pose in this one, but still, I would still like to see the cosplayer step out a little bit from the wall. The pose too is something that has the very startings of a really solid pose, but I think just some subtle tweaks and you could make this a lot more powerful. I think the hand that is the right hand that is up, I like that one. I think kind of mirroring it with the left one being out a little bit more could help. And I think I like the head being up and off like that with the head tilt there. Makes a nice shape. But I think, turning your torso towards the light so we're not getting your torso straight on. And it looks like your right leg is slightly ahead of your left leg. I'd maybe swap that, just kind of give your torso turned a little bit and kind of get a bit more of an S shape into your figure there. And this pose, like they're just pretty minor tweaks, but I think this pose could be something really strong with those subtle tweaks.
I think that with modeling in general, a lot of the time you want to go for a stronger angle than is natural.
Yep.
Like in this case, it would be like a stronger hip cock and stronger like angle on the shoulders, like more so than you would normally if you're just standing there comfortably. But you need to like exaggerate.
If you're uncomfortable, that's you're doing
a lot of
it
the
right.
time really come across on camera. So I think that would have been a good way to kind of amp it up a little bit. But yeah. One thing that I noticed, as I don't totally self-shoot in the way that this was shot, but working with someone else where like the shooting, I don't have control over the shooting and what my husband chooses when he's composing the shot, but I end up faking a lot of compositions and like kind of sliding things around and extending backgrounds and kind of doing small changes to kind of reposition things where I want them. And I feel like this image would benefit from that a little bit, because right now she's like dead center, but barely not. And I think that either like really committing to that or sliding it more towards the side to be like rule of thirds. And you can do that totally in post and just like doing a content aware fill on whatever side of the image.
Honestly, this shot, you could just crop this baby in to do that.
Yeah, but you don't want to lose anything vertically.
I'm not saying cropping vertically. You could
it.
just change the aspect ratio and crop that right side in, and that way you're cropping out that metal panel that is not adding anything to the image. So I think that could be a good, easy improvement to the image, is just given that a crop.
I think, yeah, there's a lot of right solutions, but I feel like something should change.
Totally. The lines not being straight is driving me, like, they're so close to being straight that the fact that they're not is driving me nuts. But once again, maybe it's just me being super anal. So
no, I wish they were straight too. It's
fine. I do like the colors in this shot as well, though. Something I feel like should be brought up. Like, they just got a really nice, clean look to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like we're the kind of people who are always doing creative color editing, but I think there's something to be said about just having that, like, color that feels really nice and accurate. The metals kind of doesn't have any color tint to it. The red feels red. The blue feels blue. The green feels green. It just, like, looks
all very authentic.
Yeah, it's really nice.
I like the lighting overall, and that it's like kind of this soft gradient. I think that the lighting conditions are fine, but I would like to see a little bit more retouching of the shadows in the face. Because of the direction of the lighting, where it's coming from, you get to see a little bit more of unflattering shadows, like kind of around the mouth and the chin area, which is like a spot for a lot of people, where kind of angles and shadows can form. I think that her face is lovely exactly where it is, but maybe to soften the appearance of some of those shadows to kind of
smooth it out a little bit,
create a little bit more brightness just in the face to fake it a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of got the impression that this image wasn't retouched at all.
I don't think it is.
Which is, you know, kind of, I'm guessing, I'm taking some guesses on this one and saying that the cosplayer probably doesn't know how to do any retouching. Otherwise, I imagine there might be some. But I think considering that there is no retouching, it looks pretty solid. I think some retouching could improve this image a lot, though. So, agreed.
Yeah, she's an excellent artist and cosplayer, and I really enjoy following her work. She's like super skilled technique-wise in sewing, and so it's cool to see her doing her own photography as well.
I'm sorry. I just love how no, just I was.
I thought I heard a meow, and I was like, "Am I going crazy right now?"
No, he'll just meow, so I had to bring him in here.
It was funny to me because if this was a dog, Sarah would just have been completely distracted. Now, like, cat is like, oh, a cat.
This cat is so handsome.
Let's just sit on my lap. All right, we can continue
now. Okay, with now that we have a cat involved, let's move on to the next
shot. We have animal guests every week now, almost.
He needs to give his thoughts on the photo before we move on.
Pause up.
What do you think? Can you chime in on this one?
Yes. He's like, get me down. I hate this.
That's all you have to say.
Well, wonderful insight.
Love it. Agreed.
I love that we could bring in perspective that, you know, just we can't capture that perspective here. It requires that extra guest to bring in.
That's right. Yeah. Two for one.
With that, let's move on to the next shot. This one is from Brett. And Sarah, do you want to start us off here?
Yeah. Is this the same person that submitted the other League of Legends photo?
Yes.
Okay, because I was like, I'm pretty sure it's the same cosplayer.
Yes, it's same cosplayer, same photographer.
I love the colors in this photo, like, so much. I love, like, it's almost like, actually, like, purpley hues in the shadows. I think that's super beautiful. And also compared to his other edit, which was, like, very clean overall, I like how this one is exploring color a little bit more. So it's interesting just to see, like, the variety in their editing skills. I also think like the lighting here is like super, super beautiful. Like she stands out really nice from like the background, and all those like all the greens are so nice. Like they're not quite mellow greens, but they are like the bluer greens, which is a really nice contrast to like the orange of like Nara's character. Um,
And on those greens, I love the variation in them, how they go from that kind of purple to kind of a more vibrant tone.
Yeah, it's great. I have like, there's only one nitpicky thing for me, like right off the bat, and this is really, there's really nothing you can do about it. Like, I mean, you could if you wanted to, like literally, you wanted to kill yourself, but I really, I wish that blade of grass wasn't there because like.
Which so one is it? Is it the one that's cutting across her chest, or the one that's cutting across her arm? Because I have nitpick problems with both.
No, it's for me. It's the arm because it's so much more in focus than every other blade of grass. The one on her chest, I don't mind as much.
Oh, the one on her chest bothers me more than the one on her arm.
Yeah. No, the one on the arm just drives me nuts. I would have pulled that out of the ground.
Yeah. I think you could Photoshop both of those out. They wouldn't actually, like the one on her arm, they'd both be annoying, and I think the one over her chest would be more annoying if you didn't know how to approach
100% more annoying.
Honestly, I don't know if I agree with that. I think frequency separation fixes the one on her chest real easy.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. But yeah, that blade of grass just kills me.
You can take them both out.
Yeah. I mean, both of them, neither one is going to be a fun time, but yeah.
Yeah, those are my initials.
I love the retouching on this photo, though. Like, that was my thing. This photo pops. I've talked about eye editing a lot.
I know his eye editing's so nice.
Oh, and it's so good in this shot. Like,
yeah,
it's popped in just the right ways. The catch light is really vibrant, and the eyes are glowing in the way that they should be. I'll screen share, just kind of get a zoomed in view for all you guys. The lips are retouched in a really, really nice way. Just in general, the dodge and burn is done really well. I think just really, really impressed with the overall retouch and dodging and burning. It was done really, really well.
Yeah, the attention to detail is amazing.
This photo is super vivid and striking, and the focus is really nice, and the colors are really nice, and the kind of focus beautiful. There's a lot here to love.
It's funny. I feel like outside of those two like nitpicky things, I don't have a lot to say on this photo, other like negative wise or improvement wise. I feel like this color combo shouldn't work, but somehow does. Like the greens, reds, pinks, blues, and greens, like feels like a color combo that would just end up looking a little bit like, you know, all of it mashed together would look ugly, but it doesn't here. So kudos on that. Yeah, no, it's really good. Come on, we have to have more than just a nitpick, guys, don't we? Don't
there's no reason to look for things to complain about if you look at the photo.
Yeah.
We have a brand, Heidi. We have a brand. It's tearing people down.
I'm not here for that. I'm here to talk about art, and I'm here to talk about what could help, and I think that we have covered that here.
Yeah, I honestly don't have anything else to say, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. So
yeah, no, that's I think you nailed it. I think this shot's really good.
It's beautiful. Like if I saw this in a magazine, I would stop. Yeah. Which I know is something we've also been saying recently.
Yeah. I think there are like some super duper nitpicky things but like I'm not even gonna bring them up just because I feel like it's taken me looking at this image so long to pick up like minor things outside of those two that we already covered that I'm just gonna let them be. So with that, let's move on to the next shot.
Dude, your
Alright.
cat is enjoying his life so hard.
Yeah.
I need to take a picture. This is so cute.
This is lifestyle.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Aries is the chillest cat.
I'm trying not to be distracted or distracting, but if I don't hold him, he'll just whine about it. Like,
Everyone loves animals. It's okay. But he deserves a shout out because.
but yeah, he just kind of into my lap, like whatever. He's like a liquid puddle right now.
That even got Stephanie's attention.
All right, so is it my turn?
Yeah, let's move on to the next shot. Sorry, we got distracted. This next one is by Devin. Heidi, you are up.
All right, I'm looking at this up close on my computer. And my first thought is that a couple of things. The photo itself is nice. The cosplayer's pose is really nice. They look like they're like kind of in the moment in a really convincing way. And I like a lot of what's going on here overall, but I would like to see it cropped in some because I had to zoom in to see that it is in focus, but you can hardly like really see the detail in the face and stuff just because it's so small in the image. And I know that that's, intentional a lot of the time, but in this case, I don't feel like what we're seeing in the surrounding image is more interesting than the character.
Totally. I think also, I don't know if I actually want it like necessarily pulled in, but I think the framing for for how zoomed out it is doesn't work. If you had this where the cosplayer was on the bottom of the frame and you had a very like vertical photo, I think that could work well. But as the framing is right now, it doesn't.
We've also got a horizon line that is just off of dead center, which is not ideal, I would say. I mean, sometimes that's like exactly what you're going for and it's intentional, but when it's not, I feel like it's not the strongest choice. Because it feels a little flat.
Are you talking how it's a little crooked?
No,
I'm not. And that's not, it's not a Dutch angle, it's just a little crooked. And it could also just be the tree. But I'm talking about how the kind of line of the vegetation from what we can see and where the light is hitting is kind of creating a horizontal line more or less right in the middle of the image.
Yeah.
And I feel like that should be adjusted one way or the other. I want to see more of one side and less of the other.
It's interesting because I feel like the based on how this photo was shot, I feel like the cosplayer would look more flat than they would, like in terms of like the lighting. But the lighting on the cosplayer looks really darn nice, which is throwing me off, not in a bad way, just in a surprising way.
It looks like the light shouldn't even be on them.
Yeah.
Like it almost like it should be backlit or something.
Yeah.
It might have been like, in post had that brightened up because it looks like
it could have been
lifted, but it has been done really effectively.
Yeah, the dodging and burning on this, assuming that is what it is, which I do think so, is really solid. Yeah, I don't know how that's happening. That's really interesting. I totally agree though. Like, I wish they were shifted over. Like,
yeah, I think just cropping it up, like getting rid of the lower portion and maybe like a sliver along the right. Oh yeah, because then they'd be balanced where they're looking up towards a larger portion of the image, which is generally.
Oh yeah, no, good call on that.
You were talking about that in a previous episode, where if they're looking off in one direction, you want to have them generally looking towards the rest of the photo rather than having like the edge of the frame and they're looking towards the edge of the frame. So I think this would be a really
the-
good candidate of just like cropping the unnecessary sides of the right and the
I'll
bottom.
screen share kind of what you're talking about. I just cropped it in Photoshop, and I totally agree. I think this balances out the frame so much.
Also, the photographer just popped in, and they said that dodging and burning was done in post.
That dodging and burning is nice.
The dodge and burn on that figure.
Oh, it was lit by flash.
Oh, wait.
Lit by flash and dodge and burned in post.
Oh, I missed that part completely.
Yeah.
Got it.
I was gonna say that makes more sense now, because I was like, how the frick did you like? That is an expert dodging.
Like, how
and
did
burning
you do?
if you
Exactly.
were just
I was like,
dodging.
usually it looks so bad.
Yeah, that makes way more sense. Either way, I still think a real solid job on that.
Yeah, I was also amazed at how it's in focus, because you're shooting into the sun with a darker subject.
Yeah.
And you're at enough of a distance with a lot of details. I've shot in these conditions. It's a pain in the ass, and it's
Not
really
ideal.
easy to miss focus. And I think the focus is nice from what I can see. I just would like to be able to see closer to the subject.
Agreed. I also would maybe like to see the colors played around with a little bit.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, mostly because I like, maybe once again this is probably personal bias creeping in, but I generally think kind of those yellowish greens usually don't look that great. So if you can go and just alter them a little bit, I think could help the photo pop a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a subjective thing, but I agree that you could probably pull some more depth out of the color tone overall in general, one way or the other.
Cool. You guys got any other thoughts on this one before we move on to the next shot?
Nope, you stole my color grading comment, so.
Sorry, Sarah.
Looks good.
Gotta be faster than me, Sarah.
No.
A strong image that I think could benefit from a little bit more editing, but I don't really have any critiques of the way it was shot, I guess.
Yeah, agreed.
Already a strong image.
Yeah, I think what comes out of this the most is I'm really impressed with how well the flash was popped into this image and the dodging and burning was done. Like,
because you've maintained the sense of natural lighting.
Yeah.
Which I think is always the best use of flash as well. I mean, this is personal subjective, but is when you can incorporate them in such a way that you aren't disrupting the look of the natural light, I guess. I don't know. In this type of shooting situation, anyway.
Totally agreed. Okay, and with that, let's move on to the next shot. This one is, I think, from someone who is in chat, in Elizabeth. I think I saw Elizabeth earlier.
Ooh.
I love it when people are in chat when they're doing this. It's just so cool to be able to
cool.
get their thoughts and feedback live on this.
It helps us understand the photo too more.
Oh,
there she is.
Awesome.
Hello.
I'm digging the heck out of the composition of this photo.
Dang.
It's a really cool environment. Like,
yeah.
Awesome location.
You've got such nice lines in the image. You've got this triangular wedge leading right into the cosplayer. And then the leaves right behind her are lighter than the rest of the area that has leaves behind her, kind of giving like a, just a nice like natural vignette-ish look, and it works real well. Yeah, just overall, like the color tone plays into that composition really well, with like the browns and the blues in this photo matching really nicely with the cosplayer.
This is like a really tiny comment, but it's something we've brought up before, is that I really like how they added the blue glow like onto the model as well, instead of just having like the blue lightsaber just there by itself. Because sometimes like when you're doing these things, it's easy to forget that like, oh, this light would be reflecting onto the subject. I should probably add some kind of like color cast to it so it seems like more realistic, because we all wish lightsabers were real. So I really appreciate the effort that they took to add that in and make it seem just like it's really actually there. So that's really cool.
I agree with you. I think it's just shy of hitting the brightest highlight that it would need to be really convincing.
Agreed.
Like it's like maybe the whites or the highlights overall have been turned down.
No, it's reading as pure white, so
interesting. I don't. Maybe it's.
I think it's that it feels too bright compared to the background. I think that might be kind of what like so.
No, I'm looking at her face and how the blue pigment, the blue tone, not pigment, but the blue tone has been added to the face, but it's actually creating more of a shadow. Like her face is more brightly lit on her left cheek. Well, the one that's on from her position, her left cheek, the one that's you see more of from our position in the audience, but the way that the lightsaber should be closer to her right cheek, and that's where the blue is, but there's more shadow on that side than there is on the other side.
Oh, I see.
And that needs to be swapped, or there needs to be the brighter highlight on this cheek, whether it's dodged and burned or whatever, but it's missing that brightest highlight. I'm not talking about the lightsaber itself. I'm not talking about like the white tone, whether or not solid white pixel in here. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, so. I can agree on that. Yeah. I was kind of getting more to the fact that the image was kind of darkened to make it look like it was a kind of later time period in the day, and then this lightsaber was the brightness of the lightsaber was lifted. Makes it kind of reads odd because I feel like the lighting isn't convincing me that it's later in the day. Like light, it feels bright enough out based on the lighting on the scene to imply that the scene would be brighter, and the lightsaber wouldn't be this incredible amount of brightness. So I don't necessarily dislike the scene being darkened like this, but what I am saying is with that understood, I think you almost darken the highlights of the lightsaber to match kind of how you've darkened the scene. Hopefully that made sense.
I'm not sure exactly what it is that I would change, but I do know that if this was my image, I would mess around with brightness and contrast and curves some more. Something here feels to me to not be quite balanced, at least in the way that I prefer for my images.
Yeah, I think what you might be getting at is the brightness level on her cheek is the same as like the brightness level on some of the areas that are being hit with light on the rocks. And if the lightsaber is that bright, her cheek should be brighter than the rock should.
The proximity.
Oh, that's what I thought Heidi was saying earlier.
Needs to be stronger than the overall sunlight in the scene.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Where like it looks like the sunlight has been darker or darkened, but we know realistically, based on like the contrast and the shadows there, that there's probably quite a bit of sun out or something. But yeah, I agree that it's the balance there is off somewhere, and I think it has to do with the brightness of the lightsaber and proximity to the figure versus the brightness of the overall scene and the light source of the sky.
I would say that should be a pretty easy fix as well.
I think this is another one where the image is shot really beautifully and the composition is really nice. The costume is nice. The environment is nice. I feel like editing could refine it and make it a little bit more convincing and polished. This is all real.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, I think that the moral of the story is that the composition of this shot is dope, and just like some slight tweaking can put this shot over the top.
Agreed.
Cool. You guys got any other thoughts on this one?
Nice job overall.
Yeah.
With that, we have reached our halfway point. So we are going to take
Oh my god,
a
already?
short break. And then when we'll come back, we will do a Q&A. So get those questions
Get those
ready.
questions ready.
And we will be back in a short bit. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for waiting for us. With that, let's jump into some Q&A. Shoot us your questions, people, and we will answer them. And we will do this over the course of 10 minutes. I will start the timer once we have our first question. So I'm at my fingers on the trigger here. So let's get that first question in.
Ask us things.
Questions.
What
if the entire chat goes on strike and doesn't ask us anything?
That'd be awkward.
These assholes.
Like, well, thanks for this helpful question. Really appreciate it.
Canon or Nikon?
Well,
Sony only.
That's a dumb question, but let's answer it anyways. Let's ignore Mason Yukari with his Eggs Benedict question. But we'll actually start. Here's one that is silly, but maybe in context of being in it. But I'm gonna ask it anyways. From people, what's your Instagram? This will be a quick one. Heidi, what's your Instagram?
Atelier Heidi.
Sarah?
I'm not even gonna try to say it.
So days. And mine's
it's basically that. Just look up the opening to Gur and login. You're good.
And then mine is Vontog, because Vontography was taken.
Is taken by some scrub.
All you guys are asking the silliest questions. Melinda coming in with what would you look forward to most at a ninja wedding?
All of the deaths.
Wait, what did they ask? Favorite location to shoot? There's a good question.
Wait.
Yeah, let's start with that, and then we'll do our question next.
Okay.
I have an answer.
Cool. Go for it. Shoot for it.
Deception Falls in Washington State is about an hour-ish from where I live, driving out towards the mountains, and I did my Zelda shoot there. The photo that was used to promote this episode where it's like Zelda with the bow.
I'm legit jealous we did not go there because it looked awesome.
Yeah.
I want to go to there.
But everything is super accessible. It's this waterfall that you can like pretty much crawl right up on, and tons of trails. Just it's super magical, and the forests are just covered in moss, and it's so amazing. And everyone needs to go there and come visit me, and we'll go shoot there.
Man, I don't know if I have a like specific one. I love shooting in nature, but also like destroyed buildings are also awesome. Very, very kind of generic, but
those are hard to find where they're actually accessible.
Yeah, so it's bummed me out. I had one that I knew of that it was really cool. I took if you guys have seen my most recent photo of Pyrofly as Tomb Raider, I had two of Oki Cosplay as Cammy. Those were both from a Milwaukee like burned out building, but they've like since boarded everything up, and it's next to impossible to get into. So it's a bummer. Sarah, do you have one, or should we go to Ara's like actual legit like amazing question?
We'll go to Ara's real question.
Okay.
Yeah, I like this question.
Okay, so I'm just going to put up the top. What is proper etiquette? I'll read the full question from Ara. What is proper etiquette when a cosplayer receives a gorgeous photo back, but something cosmetic about themselves is preventing them from ever posting it? Like under eye bags, a double chin, etc. Can they ask the photographer to retouch, or is that in poor taste?
That's not poor taste. If you don't like the way you look and you paid for that fucking shoot, you have every right to ask the photographer if they can fix it, or if you can fix it, or whatever the fuck.
Even if you haven't paid for it, like most photographers want to know. Like if you don't post a photo that they took and gave to you, and you're just like if it's for cosmetic reasons, a lot of the times the photographer, they're gonna notice that you've never posted the photo.
People take that really personally.
Yeah, we're ridiculous like that. We notice when you don't share the photo.
I mean, sometimes it's instances where they're not posters online, but if they're regular posters who don't post the content you've given them, then you're like, fuck, I fucked up.
So we, if there's, especially if it's something that we can go back in and fix, we want to know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might be a little awkward, but
It's not awkward.
I would also advocate for communicating.
Yeah.
I would say that don't fix it without permission and don't do it without speaking to them.
Yes.
Like, ask them to fix it or ask for permission to fix it specifically and say, like, I'm not going to edit other things or whatever.
Totally agree with a point you just said too, is don't fix it without asking them first, though.
Because actually that just happened to a friend of mine, and she was just so unhappy about that. So please ask.
I've seen photographers make call-out posts about cosplayers saying, she took my photo and changed it and used liquify on her boobs and arms and everything else, and it was really awkward.
Yeah, I don't get yourself into that situation.
Right.
What I was gonna say though is kind of it being awkward too. Just it's gonna be better in the end. So even if you do feel a little weird about it, just go for it.
And like, we're used to it, so like,
if a photographer is weirded out by them, then maybe don't work with that photographer again.
Yeah, fuck them.
Yeah, if that happens, then it's like, okay, you're just gradually learning who to continue working with over time. Exactly. And sometimes it's not personal. Sometimes it's just you're gravitating towards the photographers whose styles you like the most, who are communicating with you the best, or whatever. Just keep tabs on who you want to keep working with, and the best people to work with are the ones who are comfortable communicating with you about, hey, I don't like this aspect of my face, but your photo is nice. Can we just change this?
Go ahead.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, then I can't help you there.
Oh, what I was going to say is, like, you are going to run into photographers where, like, they're not going to be comfortable by you asking. I've had it before, and it sucks, and it feels, like, really shitty, but it is just kind of, like, a learning experience. But don't get discouraged if you end up having a streak of photographers that don't want to make the photos, like, good for both of you. So, because I know some cosplayers have asked me before, they're like, well, I've asked photographers before, but they say no. And it's like, well, that's not everyone. So don't let those few people think that that's how all of us are going to be. So to keep that in mind.
Photographers style very greatly. But I think that for the most part in cosplay photography, especially, photographers want to make their subjects look good. They want to make photos that flatter the person in them and that make them feel good and want to post it. And that is usually the mutual goal. Not everyone is like that. Some people are sticklers to, this is what's real. Then just don't work with them if you don't want that.
Exactly.
I'm going to go on to another question from Ara.
Wait, Ara's next question. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah,
I like that one too.
Yeah, so this question from Ara, again, she's coming in hot with those questions.
Hot.
A photographer is doing unpaid shoots at a con, but you want to book them and pay them. Has anyone had that feeling before? Can you pay someone not doing a paid shoot? Is that weird? So I think context is pretty important here. Whoops, I typed in the wrong box. I'm just gonna do that because that's easy. So I think, as someone who does mostly unpaid shoots, a lot of times I'm doing unpaid shoots because I don't want the full commitment that comes with paid shoots.
That's what I was thinking.
That said, that doesn't mean I wouldn't take. If someone's offering to me a tip, I would take it. It's hard because it's something that, once again, as Heidi had mentioned earlier, communication is key in these scenarios. If you're interested in booking them for a shoot and they're not planning on doing paid shoots, just talk to them about it. Like, if you go ahead, Sarah.
I was gonna say something as simple as, like, do you want me to bring you coffee? Or like, because as you know, like, photographers, like me, for example, I'm an idiot. I'll book like so many back to back, and then I don't have time for foods. Or so, like, when people are like, do you want me to bring you a snack? Or just like something just to show your appreciation goes a long way.
I should do that more than cosplayers.
Yeah. That and we're easily bribed.
You bring me food, I'm a happy human.
Yeah.
Sorry.
if
no,
we're
go ahead.
shooting all like free shoots and one cosplayer tips us, or if one cosplayer brings us food, just a thought. Whose photo do you think we're gonna get to first when we edit or editing
I mean,
those?
not wrong.
I mean,
Yeah. I was about to say, as a cosplayer, I've been in situations where I did free shoots with people and then I offered to pay them after the fact because there was one particular instance where we'd done a free shoot. It was a guy who did some paid shoots and some free shoots, but he invited me to shoot with him, and so I was happy to do that. And then I was so happy with the photos in the back of the camera, and I really wanted to make sure that I got them, because when you do a free shoot with someone, there's no guarantee, you know, like you're going to get thrown into their backlog, who knows how long, if they edit it at all. And you just have to deal with that as a cosplayer and take what you get. And so I said to him, I was like, hey, I'm really happy with this shoot. Can we make it a paid shoot? I'll pay you for the work just to get at the front of the line. And it worked. And it was awesome. And another instance where I approached someone to shoot who did not do paid shoots and who only did free shoots, and I offered to pay, and I was like, hey, I really want to work with you, I'd love to do a paid shoot, and they just like didn't accept my money. But I mean, it was still fine.
Yeah. Couple final thoughts on that. Just we always appreciate whatever extra that you can do for us. Most of us are not going to turn down tips and stuff, and it just lets us, like, especially when we're doing free shoots, a lot of that extra effort we're putting in, like, we wouldn't have to be putting in, and it lets us know that you actually care, because a lot of times when we give like free photos back and like all we hear is like, oh, looks good, and then you repost it and like say like, here's a photo from this, and like we're just like, oh, okay. It kind of, you know, a lot of times we don't get a good feel of like how much you actually care. And,
hoping for more feedback, and like
that can be a really good way of letting us know, like, hey, I really appreciated our time together, and we're not saying that it's necessary for every shoot, but it's just a really good way of kind of making your photographer feel appreciated.
I also want to put this in the perspective really quick of like friends shooting friends. Because like I have a couple of friends that will shoot me like when I ask them, and it's for free, but like once it's like starts like adding up, I'll offer to buy them like dinner or like a full meal, or like I'll buy them a gift in like dealer's room of something that I know that they would like, or like something camera related. So like even though I didn't pay them like right then and there, it's just like the fact that like they've shot me. Like, I mean, Cosplay Photography, he's a perfect example, and so is Mason Hikari Photo. Like both of them always take the time to like take at least one photo, and I'm like so grateful for them to squeezing me into their actual like important booked clients. So as a thanks, I'll try to like buy them something, even if it's later on, just to show that like I don't see it as just like a friend benefit, which sounds really fucking terrible, but like it's true though.
Yeah.
No, that's important. It's just important to be mindful of how much you ask from your friends in general. And one thing that I try to do, because I am in a position where people are willing to shoot with me for free a lot of the time, and I really appreciate that. And I don't ever want those people to feel like I'm just taking advantage of that. Like if someone's going to offer me their time and point their camera at me, like that's amazing. Like I'm very grateful for that. And so one little thing, relatively small thing that I try to do is just make sure that I'm making time to hang out with those people where I'm not asking them to shoot me. It's just like such a small thing. Where I'm
huge.
Like, hey, do you want to get dinner after this, or drinks, or what are you doing later? You want to hang out in the room, or just like the smallest gestures of like not just hitting them up for photos, and making sure that they know that you have an interest in an ongoing friendship with them.
Yes.
It doesn't rely on them giving you things, because, you know, if someone wants to shoot with me for free, like that's awesome. I'm grateful for that. I'm going to take them up on it. But I want it to be a mutual give and take situation where they feel welcome and appreciated in my life.
So, and I want to say that that's like very appreciated, because there are a couple cosplayers who have done that for me, because I've offered to shoot them for free. Just as like, you know, it's like I like their work and it's like really beautiful. It's like you, Heidi, I've shot you before too, and it's like at first I thought it was kind of weird. I was like, why do you want to hang out? I don't really know you, but then they were Like, oh, I just want to show that, like, you know, I
Fuck,
want to
this
be
chick
friends
wants
with
to
you
hang out
too.
with me. Screw that.
I was
She's
like,
weird.
ew, what weird. But once I realized what the gesture was, I was like, oh, that's like really
So-
endearing. Like it goes a long way. Like it seems small, but like those tiny things, especially because like as photographers and as cosplayers too, we experience it as well. You get taken advantage of a lot. And so when you come across someone who is like willing to give you their time of day to like respect you and for you and your work is like good stuff.
So speaking of appreciating people and their work and the time that they put in, that's all. So let's throw in
Bye Vontography.
wink wink nudge nudge. So with that, we're running long in this Q&A, but there was one other question that I wanted to get to before we got off there, and let's make a quick answer to this one. What things do you all do to give more value to your clients? I thought that was an interesting question. I don't remember who asked it. It was a little bit up, and I need to scroll. But do you guys have any thoughts on that? And I honestly don't really like. Usually,
this is one question I don't relate to because I don't
Yeah.
shoot other people.
yeah, most of my shoots are free, so I don't really, the shoot and the photos are the added value in itself.
I have some. It might be like a little controversial, but
let's go.
Let's hear it.
Sarah's just like,
Okay.
don't know what to do.
no, because it's something that I try to make a cognizant doing. Like it's not a bad thing. It's just something that I know can be like a sensitive topic in the community. But like, I put the same effort into editing my photos as no matter who I shoot. I don't care if you have 1 million followers or if you have 300 followers. I'm going to make sure that the time that I put into each edited photo, or even if you're just a fucking haul shot that I took 30 seconds, I spend the same amount of time editing each photo. Like, because the only reason I say this is controversial is because I observe, like, I'm not stupid. Like, I can tell when a photographer has spent more time editing someone because they're cause famous or because they have a larger following. First of all, that's shitty. If they're your client, you should not be treating them differently based on like their social ladder climbing or whatever the fuck you want to call it. So that's something that I try to do. Like, I treat everyone equally. Whoever books me, like, they're gonna get the same amount of time and care into like retouching, coloring, all that crap. I don't skimp based on who you are. I don't give a shit.
I can't say I do that approach for all my free shoots because I just don't have like the lifespan required to do that. But for paid work, if you're paying for me, I am delivering the same level of quality, or at least doing everything in my power to deliver that same level of quality to everyone who will book me for a paid shoot. Like, that is, I think that is just being consumer friendly and just being a good photographer and a good person. Like,
yeah, don't be a shitty person.
Yeah, don't be shitty.
And it's also like, so someone in the chat says being a cosplayer, that's very discouraging. Like, cosplayers know. The problem is that I think cosplayers are afraid to speak up against photographers, and it's like, they're not dumb either. They know when someone
gets around too.
Yeah,
like,
and also just we're not dumb. Like, you can just tell when someone spent clearly 5 seconds editing this photo, putting a fucking visco filter over it, and then someone like Andrew and I, or like even Heidi, like we spend hours like editing the same photo. Like,
yeah,
it's
I have a story. I told this to Andrew already, I think, but I had one KatsuCon. It was Thursday night of KatsuCon, which I think a lot of people know that KatsuCon is one of the events where everyone wants to be the first one to get their photos out. So it was Thursday night of Katsu, and a photographer is posting like day of photos that they like went back and posted in their hotel room or whatever. And so I had gotten a quick haul shot from a very famous cosplay photographer. And this was even years ago where I had like very little like Like nobody knew who I was at all. It was just like a quick thing that happened. And I was like, oh, that was cool. I'm excited to see the photo later. And then that night I get tagged in it. He did not even white balance it. He did not even hit auto.
That's rough.
It was very sad, and I saw it and I was incredibly disappointed because I was like, this isn't even a photo that I would have taken and posted. Like, this is like not a good photo at all. And that wasn't even a complaint about like what I looked like in it. It was just an ugly photograph with zero effort into it.
Yeah.
And it was really sad to see that because I was like, well, I guess this is the quantity over quality lifestyle.
There is a very different approach on that, like con coverage type of photography.
He wasn't that type of photographer.
Oh, well, then that's awkward.
Yeah, I was like, that's fucking awkward.
Well, that's awkward.
Now you know who to avoid.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't particularly enjoy con coverage photos, but like I appreciate, like, it's something I don't enjoy, but I understand and I think it adds value to the community. But especially if they weren't trying to do con coverage stuff, and you're just like, okay.
You're like,
yeah,
yay.
I saw the photo afterward, and what I felt was, oh, he didn't think I was important. Like, oh, he would have spent more time on this if I had been somebody else. Is the issue with it. So, yeah.
That's a shitty feeling.
Yeah, it is a shitty feeling. But anyway, yeah, thanks for not doing that, Sarah. And
I thought you were gonna say thanks for not doing that, Sarah. Then just stares at me.
And no,
Andrew.
Andrew.
All my photos. Thanks, Andrew. Anyway, we've been talking for a really long time.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, thanks for getting us on track, Heidi. Yeah,
let's go to photos.
Yeah, we definitely went over on the Q&A, but hopefully it was of value to people. So that's what I'm gonna.
Thank you, Ara, for always asking the best question.
Okay, I think we left off on this photo. Yeah, let's jump back into it. This photo is from Eric, who's submitted a bunch of times, so it's awesome to see back. Sarah, do you want to lead us off here?
Yes. This is from Detroit Becomes Human, which I just confirmed with a friend, so I was like, I know what it's from. Anyway, I really like, because I'm pretty sure everyone in this game is like a cyborg or something. I don't know. But I really...
Not people. Yeah.
They're not real, right? They're like robots or something?
They're androids. Yeah. It's
okay, androids.
Becoming human.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Rights and for your sentience.
Okay, because I really like the retouching that was done on this photo. Like, she almost, like, because sometimes we'll talk about, like, over retouching or it's taken, like, a little bit too far, but I actually kind of like it here where it is kind of, like, really soft and, like, porcelain feeling because it kind of, like, plays off of that whole, like, AI thing.
Artificial person.
Yeah, so, I get that feeling. Like, it feels very sci-fi to me without being, like, overly edited to feel sci-fi, if that makes any sense. I also really like the colors in this photo. I think it plays off of the game's aesthetic really, really well. Because it's kind of like a more muted tone. So I just think it's nice that they really like kind of like played off of the original game's like color tone and stuff for this photo. That being said, though, I think the glowy thing on the side of her head, I think needs like a little. Actually, I mean, I don't really know what it looks like in the game either, but it looks like it could be incorporated into her a little bit better if adding some kind of like shadow around it. Like if it was like, I don't know if it's supposed to be like an implant or something. I don't know.
It's like a part of their Android faces, but yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because right now it's like, it almost looks like it's the brightest part of the photo. So maybe even if it was just toned down like a tiny bit, I don't know. But it feels a little off to me, I think. That's it.
It seems like.
Go ahead.
Andrew always refers to the specular highlights if you're adding any kind of effects into your photo and how you need to like not lower the opacity because you need to have it to be that intense, even though it's like can be odd to blend in.
I don't. Sarah, this part is supposed to be glowing.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
It is literally like a light on the head.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was like supposed to be kind of flat looking or.
I think that because I'm looking at it really closely on the image, and it looks like she is wearing something. Like there's a practical effect here that looks like it's probably enhanced with Photoshop rather than someone just popping the circle on in Photoshop. Because if you zoom in, you can see that the circle is like segmented, like it's portions of a ring of LEDs. I have one of these, which is why I.
Oh shit! I do see that. Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, so this is clearly something that she's actually wearing on her head. I don't know what exactly.
That's cool.
And then I think that the lights were probably enhanced in Photoshop, but like the white isn't as bright as, like, it's not quite reading as being lit compared to the rest of the image.
Yeah, they're actually very bright in the game. Now that I'm looking at it. Anyway.
I think the biggest problem with this image is you shot a photo from Detroit Become Human in Chicago. Like, come on.
It's too pretty.
Come on, it's in Chicago, not Detroit. You can't even do that, guys. No. It
is really, really nice. I like the cosplayer's expression a lot. I like there's like a softness to it, and there is like I don't know, there's a humanity to her, but she does look artificial and like kind of her expression. It's a very beautiful moment, and the cosplayer just looks very poised in a way that I really like. I kind of wish there was a little bit more headroom in the crop, but that's like a really minor thing. That's what I would do with it. But I do like a lot of I like the composition overall. I really like the subject overall.
Yeah, I think, like, I wish the color toning was like played with just a smidge more. I wish there was kind of like a teal color in those shadows, like.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Kind of.
I can see that.
On the building and underneath the bridge, just having a bit of that teal in there could be really cool. Kind of give it more of that Android-y feel, for a lack of a better way to put that.
Close enough.
Yeah.
There's a lot of blues in the images. I think that you could bring them, like, to kind of tint the shadows with some color toning that direction too would be really nice.
I do think the hands feel a bit odd to me. I kind of wish, like, just having them both rest there like that. I wish there was something more to this pose. It kind of works in the context of this android-y, almost not quite human but human way, but the pose feels very stiff to me, and maybe that was intentional. And if it was,
I think
then
it really works for the character.
Yeah.
I'm cosplaying this character too.
Right,
I think the cosplayer did a really.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. So maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So.
Well, for me, I feel like the hands feel too lax. Like, I don't mind the stiffness really necessarily in her body, but I feel like the hands, again, not that I know how to pose hands, we talked about this last time, but like, it feels like they were just kind of like nonchalantly just like placed there. I don't know. They feel too lax for me, I guess.
I think this is getting into nitpicking outside of like the raw element of the photo. But I guess if I were to think of ways to improve the pose, I would maybe try having the hands like resting gently on each other, or having one on the bar and doing something
on each other is really, really what I was thinking.
Yeah. But that's like, I think that's really nitpicky as far as like going beyond like what the possibility could be in this shooting situation. I do think that this photo is nicely taken and nicely processed.
It is.
Other thought, I kind of wish that this crop was just pulled out just a little bit more, or zoomed in a little bit more. One of the two. I think it's kind of interesting. I didn't really realize it to now. I think part of the reason why I like this composite so much, or not composite, composition was the word I was going for. Why I like the composition so much is there's just a lot of good choices when it came to this. There's the fence leading line into the cosplayer. It's coming on the other side, the bridge is another leading line into the cosplayer. You've got her centered in the space between the buildings. So you've got the leading lines from the buildings leading into her. It's just, I would maybe have shifted her over just a little bit so that she kind of was fully covering open the like sky area and not as much of the building. But like still, overall, compositionally, this is a really solid shot.
I don't know. I kind of like where she is, where she's not dead on and exactly in the gap, but the lightness of the buildings, like she's still like in a very pleasing spot for the rule of thirds.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I still very, very much like it, but
I think the only comment that I would say to improve this, I think I agree that the composition is very, very strong. The only comment I have would be to pull out slightly, give a little bit more headspace in the crop, and show a little bit more of the like kind of the edges of the city. But I do think it's quite lovely as it is.
Agreed. Okay. Any other thoughts or move on to the next shot? Sounds like we should go on to the next one.
Next one.
This next one is from Jonathan Bell. Heidi, I believe you are up.
I am up. So Jonathan Bell is someone that I recently met on Twitter, and he is, I believe, a professional photographer.
Wait, he photographed himself?
Yes,
yeah.
He is.
Oh, I should have said that. Yeah, this is self-portrait. We're going down this.
This is him as Superman shot by him. He has a tripod and probably a trigger that he's using, and he routinely does his own shoots. And so he has he's posted quite a few. And so that's a really good thing to note as we go into this. I think he's just an incredibly talented person. And looking at this photo, I really like kind of the softness of the light and the colors overall, and that kind of the way that he is lit by the rim light. It's all very beautiful. It's all very striking. The main thing that I wish I got from this that isn't quite here is just a little bit more definition in the face and the figure, because it is blown out from being backlit, which I get that is like a part of the style. And it's also a very, very difficult thing to nail this angle when you're shooting yourself, because 1 centimeter to the left or the right is going to give you a different amount of light and exposure in the way that hits.
Yeah, everything about this is like exponentially made more difficult by
being the photographer and subject. Yeah.
But I was going to say, I wish he had moved a little bit more to the left, so much of the sun flare itself was like obstructing his face. Because I get what he was going for, but it was like a little too much right now.
Yeah, it's too much flare for me.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some of it could be saved in post. I'm not entirely sure. It is hard because it is being backlit by the sun. That's kind of like...
I also, and once again, something that's super duper freaking hard in this scenario in general and exponentially made more difficult, but the focus was really missed as well.
I know.
I couldn't... Well, I haven't zoomed all the way in.
Yeah, so like the focus really falls on the rock in front. That's like where the focus lands. So like his face is out of focus.
The lighting.
So that kind of adds to kind of feeling like you lost definition because of the flare, because also you're losing it because of back. It's blurring. So I think that maybe if it was perfectly in focus, it might the flare might not feel as bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's just a difficult shooting situation.
So it's like I don't know what the solution is. I could not do it.
I do think that it was really pulled in post, like the haloing that's happening along the rocks here feels pretty intense to me, and it's probably just like trying to save those highlights in post, because like this image, that sky would be totally blown out, but instead it's got this yellowish tone, and I think maybe just that recovery has created a really strong halo there, and maybe you just want to go back and try and smooth that out and post a little bit.
I wasn't sure what the technical like story was there for what created
Mhm.
that. Um, I kind of wish that we saw a little bit more contrast or vignette in the sky. And I get that it's very, very bright, but I guess that I wish that there was a clearer point of origin in the light rather than all being very bright and kind of washed out. And you can see the sense of where it is, but it's not very strong,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I guess.
Like if there's a blue sky or at least some semblance of blue, it might, feel like you can have a little bit more context.
Mhm.
I do like the mood though that he was able to capture with this. Like it feels very, I mean, for lack of a better term, like supernatural. Like I almost feel like he's actually
Yeah.
like in space or something. Like
Yeah.
not on Earth. Well, I don't know why it feels like that, but it just does. Just
The
the way that
rocks feel very alien.
So
yeah, and like the way the light is like falling over them, it's just like, and his pose is just very stoic, or as Ara said, Chris, just kidding.
One thing that I will say, which is even a counterpoint to an earlier criticism that I made, which is that you can't see very much of the face. I will say that I do really like the way that that can be used as a concept in cosplay photography, where you see most of the character but not accept the face. Like you see the figure
yes.
and the costume and you see everything but the face.
So
That can be extremely effective in selling this sense of authenticity, because when you take out like the individual's features, then you remove the barrier of the viewer thing saying, well, I don't think they look exactly like that in my mind.
so
And then they just see the elements of the character, which I think is very effective in creating like selling
I
this sense of
100% agree with that. However, I find those shots usually work best when they are zoomed in like cuts of a costume. Like you're I don't think the cropping necessarily works for this shot in that way.
I think
Uh,
there's different ways to accomplish that, but
I do
I feel
too.
like
I
this one
just think
isn't
that the cropping wouldn't
quite where
work.
I want it to be,
Yeah.
like in that sense.
Um couple of nitpicks. I in general feel like the frame is just a bit too tall here. I think just cropping out some of the negative space up top could help. Um I also, and maybe this is just me, but I feel like there's some weird distortion going on via the angle. Like his body to me, and this might be wide angle distortion that's causing this. It might be just my eyes playing tricks on me, but his body looks like it's a little bit like squished this way to me. And I'm thinking that might be by the wide angle distortion. He's falling off backwards, and you've got the camera, the lens distorting him upwards. But like he just looks a little bit too narrow to me, and it feels like something in my brain is telling me that's off. Um, that one I could be convinced otherwise, but there's just something in this that's telling me. Um, uh,
Are we not going to talk about the lens?
Oh, Sarah,
I was wondering about
how
that.
could I not talk about the lens
I
flare?
figured one of
Gotta
you guys
save
would
the
cover
best
that.
for last.
I was like, did I black out and we just haven't said it yet?
No, that lens flare. I
Oh, man.
am sorry, but that lens flare has to go.
It's like the only thing in focus.
It's
Yeah, it just bothers.
It doesn't-
It bothers me because it feels artificial.
yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
look remotely real. This shot would look better without this lens flare. Like it just would look better without this lens flare. I I I understand the appeal of adding them, but I think you'll find that lens flares don't often actually look like this either. I don't know what it is about these artificial lens flares, but like if you look at lens flares taken out of cameras now, more often than not, cameras lenses are made to designed to not have the elements show up in their flares, so that it's just a nice soft flare, because most of the time that looks better. And when they are showing up, they're never like this defined. Like they're never this sharp. Like I
Yeah.
can't.
And they're also never this perfect looking.
Yeah,
Like they're
like-
circular shapes, like
Yeah,
they're blobs.
Yeah, and like you won't get that sharp of edges on them, and usually the reason why we don't like lens flares in the image is because they're just visual distractions. And I should say, when I say lens flare, I'm speaking specifically the elements, because what a lens flare is the light reflecting off of all of the internal lens elements of the lens. So each one of those lights is caused by different elements in the lens.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Never heard a technical explanation.
yeah, and
Cool.
most of the time camera manufacturers are trying to prevent those because they don't look very good. Not to say that you can't make lens flares look good, because you can, but yeah, I would just get rid of this one.
Yeah.
I do just love the mood of the shot though. Like the colors are really solid in it too. You guys got any other thoughts on this one before we head on to the next shot?
Okay, I have one last comment.
Awesome.
Go for it.
As a cosplayer, I would recommend that he wear a dance belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's, especially at this angle, an undesirable amount of definition in that
I
area.
actually don't think that is what it is, but it certainly could read like what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could be totally wrong, but I think there's if there's an unfortunate shadow in that area if that's not what it is.
Heidi, even if that isn't what we think it might be,
Yeah,
it
even if
still
that's not what
leaves
it
some thoughts in our mind of what it might be. So let's just try, even get rid of it in post, because it wouldn't be a hard thing to get rid of in post either with
Nope.
frequency separation.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's all. That's all.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That was just as a from one cosplayer to another. I think that's important to.
No, that is
about.
important because so many guys do not do that. So just
Yeah. Even if that's just a general PSA. Even if that's not what's in this image, that's
just
no.
keep that in mind. Thank you.
Wrap it up.
Okay, with that, let's go on to the next image.
Oh my god.
This one is
This
from
is a
our
real
frequent
concern.
submitter in Kai or YGK. I think this is another one. He said he had a bunch that he was gonna be submitting from Pixelmania in Poland. So it's cool that he's got a lot of these submitted.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of that.
Yeah, me too.
Dude.
This, I am so close to liking the framing on this photo. I think there's a ton of potential in this frame. I love the angle from this is part of the problem. I don't know what her weapon is by the pose.
It's an axe.
I like an axe. I kind of thought it was, but I wasn't certain. I like the way the pole is coming through the frame and dividing it up kind of there, but how much of the axe head is covering up her body is what's bothering me. I think you do this same pose with her hand a little bit back so that less of it's covering her body. It's minor change, very very powerful shot, just with a little bit of change to it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, for those of you playing the drinking game at home, this is our first Dutch angle, I believe. So let's get
So
those
small.
Dutch angles rocking.
No!
It's a Dutch angle. There is no doubt that this is a Dutch angle.
It's just very small.
Because you can
Compared
see
to
those
other
vertical
ones.
lines. If I fix it, I don't know. I think this is substantial enough to be a significant Dutch angle.
It's fine. It doesn't make me want to like fall over like some Dutch.
No. It's not particularly bothering me here. I don't think it's necessarily needed per se, but it's not also, it's also not really hurting, and I'm also not feeling distorted. But I can't leave the people playing the drinking game at home. I can't leave them hanging. Call it the Dutch angle. I think part of the reason that I don't care for the axe head is because it's covering up the cosplay, which I think is the main appeal of the photo. But
That's what I was thinking.
But the
yeah,
other,
it's like almost 50% of the photos is X.
Yeah, working with the angle to keep the same concept, but just showing more, like showing a little bit more of her arms and her body, and getting the sense of what she's doing behind the weapon would help a lot.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I also think that the brightness on the weapon is just too bright compared to the rest of the photo. You could tone that down in post, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's. I think if you tone that down, it would help overall. I do like the lighting on her though.
I love those highlights in her eyes.
Yeah, the catch lights look really good.
Yeah,
I would maybe.
Super nice.
I assume that there's a rim light. I think maybe you should have put the rim light a little bit more behind her. It's maybe. I would like to kind of lighting the edge of her hair a little bit more and a little bit less on her cheek like it is there. But overall, I still don't mind the way that catch light or the rim light's coming in. I also really wish we get one flower in this photo. And man, if you got those flowers there and they're really close to the color in her costume, I really want to see her with more of those flowers.
That would have been really nice.
Yeah, and then maybe even just color shift them so that they're matching the costume as well. That'd be really neat.
Is this the title character? Is this Ruby?
No, this isn't.
This is not Ruby.
I don't know which. Okay, never mind.
Forgot what it's from.
Just as a reminder, because I just saw someone had commented, Eric Jaworski in a previous photo had commented on Facebook chat earlier. I'm actively not looking at the Facebook chat anymore. We're trying to slowly wean ourselves off of Facebook. So if you're chatting, only chat on Twitch, because otherwise we are not going to notice it live. Just a quick comment. Sorry, I wanted to insert that. Yeah, you guys got any other thoughts on this shot?
No, the big thing for me was like the post. It was, so I don't need to reiterate.
Yeah, I think we covered most of the thoughts that I had on it as well.
Yeah, honestly, it's just the weapon position is. I mean, it's 50% of the photo, so that's why it's
like
kind
more
of
than 50%,
it takes up most of our comments.
Can work. It's just not really here.
Yeah,
like just because it's out of focus and it's hiding things that are
and if you don't
more valuable information,
like kind of context wise, Sarah knew what it was. I didn't, so I had a hard time reading that it was an axe. Like I if you don't know what it is, it's hard to read in the shot.
Yeah, but the only reason I knew what it was, so many people for a time were cosplaying this character, and it's all I saw on my feed. So, but that's the only reason I knew what it was.
Goddamn cosplayers. With that, let's move on to the next shot. This one is from someone who just subbed today, and Kelvin. So thanks again, Kelvin, for that sub. Appreciate all of you who sub. That's awesome. But Kelvin is special because he subbed and submitted. Sarah, do you want to lead this one off?
Yes.
I would have laughed so hard if you were like, "No, Andrew, I don't."
No, it's Kelvin Gross. Wow, I love the colors in this photo, especially compared to last week's where they were kind of like not muted, but like not as like bright and colorful. I want to assume this was taken at the same con, but I don't know. Yeah, I love the colors in this photo. I think they're super beautiful and fit with like the whole like fantasy thing for Boku no Hero. That being said, though, I think that the white, whatever that white is in the background, I kind of wish it had been toned down like a tiny bit.
Is it a car? Because my brain reads it as a out of focus car.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, that's why I think it's at Colossal Con, because it makes me think it's the cars that are all parked over there, but I could be wrong. I don't know. But I wish it'd been toned down a little bit. Because you have all this beautiful like green bokeh in the background, and then you have like this big white blotch like to the right. I wish that had been taken care of a little bit more, but overall, it's a really beautiful shot. Like the cosplayer looks great. I really like the lighting, and the colors are just super nice. Maybe some dodging and burning and bring some more definition back into the photo.
Yeah.
I really love the photo overall. The softness, the light quality, it's very beautiful. It's very like it's got this pink freshness to it. I love the like blurred out bokeh background, except that I can just barely like you have just enough information to tell that it's a car. And I know the way that I would have handled this in editing would be to take probably like the heel brush and like grab some of the colors of the background and just like paint them around in a different pattern. And I would use all of the same information. Like I would basically do some digital painting with elements of the photo to mix around those shapes and colors just to make it look like blotches of something else that isn't a car.
Yeah,
That's all it would take.
Yeah, I would have done a similar thing, like, because I've had to do this before where I'll just take like parts of the background like and cut them out and so I can easily kind of like mesh them in,
like kind of composite different areas of the same photo like into itself in such a way.
Because luckily enough, like everything is so blurry in the background already that if you did that, like no one would be able to tell.
Yeah, and it's so nice. Like this is a perfect candidate for that kind of thing. Like you could really easily like kind of paint in things. I think I probably also would have cropped it slightly to like remove a little bit of the left side and bottom so that she's a little bit more kind of would be shifted toward the edge of the image rather than being like more centered. But that's just my own, personal, how I would adjust the composition. But I do really, really like pretty much every other aspect of this that I'm looking at here.
Mallow brought up an interesting point.
I was gonna get onto that too. I totally agree with Mallow here, but I would do a different approach. Yeah, go ahead.
I can't remember what she. It's
so she said that she would try and liquefy things. I think this is maybe a bit too hard to liquefy. What I would watch out for is having someone look at you with their eyes completely in the corner, their irises in the corner of their eyes.
I would have her move her
head more, versus have her look at you with just her eyes like that.
That's something I've learned over time. I used to do this all the time when I was first starting.
Either that or have them look off.
Yeah.
As a cosplayer, I've just learned not like there is a relatively small radius dead ahead of where I will allow my eyes to move within, and I don't like to look very far to the side because you just reveal way too much white in your eyes. So that's something that I always try to watch myself for as a cosplayer, but you can't always tell exactly.
It's interesting, and maybe this is a side effect of me wearing glasses for most of my life, but I have a hard time like adjusting my eyes to like if I'm looking like that for like more than like a fraction of a second, like it actually is like physically uncomfortable to hold my eyes in that position. So like
I see what you mean.
Yeah, and like I said, it might be a byproduct of me wearing these guys for my entire life, and I try to keep my eyes in the frame of my glasses, and I don't know, whatever. Point being is it looks a little odd.
I feel like if you feel like you're physically straining your eyes to look to the side, it's probably not good on camera.
Yeah, I would say that's just something to be mindful of avoiding with when you're shooting, whether you are the cosplayer or the photographer or both. And that's a really, it's generally unflattering on most people. And so it's just something to try to avoid whenever possible.
I just want to reiterate, I love the framing of the foreground bokeh, though.
Yeah, this like foreground element that's coming down and wrapping around is really, really nice.
Yeah. Everything. I feel like almost everything in this image works except car. I mean,
it's a great
car?
image regardless.
Yeah.
Car?
No, I mean,
Car,
we all know
Kelvin?
it's a car because our brains piece it together. I just wish my brain didn't piece that together as a car.
Yeah. It's
But it's pretty
amazing
easy
that our
to
brains
stuff.
can do that. Brains
Yeah, I
like,
just don't want to
that car. And we're just like, damn it.
God damn it.
Calvin
Definitely a car.
responds, definitely a car.
Oh,
God
man.
bless Calvin.
It's a wonderful photo. There's so much to love here. Just don't let us know that it's a car.
Yeah. I mean, I'd still post it, so.
Yeah, no, where we'd have a lot of problems if we were like, oh, that looks like a Ford Fiesta. Then we'd have some real issues. But, so, yeah. You guys got any final thoughts before we move on?
Mm-mm.
Yep,
Cool.
great picture.
Before we go on to the next before we go on to the next photo, I want to give a thank you to Ginny Liz for the $5 donation. Super appreciated. Thank you so much. Hopefully I can shoot with you sometime again in the future. Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to the next shot. And this one is from Maddie. Or Maho Maddie. Let's see. Am I starting this one? No, Heidi is. Okay, I almost lost track.
Oh, it's my turn.
Yeah.
Okay. My first thought looking at this image is I really love the color toning and this purpley magenta kind of color that has been brought out in this grass is just really nice and adds like an interesting dimension to what would normally just be kind of like a flat green color. So I think that was handled well. I also generally really like the composition and the position and the pose of the cosplayer overall and kind of where she falls in the image. My first kind of critique of how I think this could be improved a little bit would be filling in some of the shadows on her right side of her face where she's because you can see a lot more brightness on the left side and it's creating almost this like line of like light and dark. I know that there's like you could have if you were in the shooting situation and you had some type of reflector, you could try to fill in some light from that side, or if you're just working in post, you could either in Lightroom brighten that area selectively or use some dodging and burning or do something to kind of even out the face overall. Those are my first thoughts on it, but I do like this image a lot as a whole. I think there's a lot of really strong stuff going on.
I just thought in general, just from seeing Maddie submit a bunch of photos over the course of time, I feel like you're really starting to get color toning down, and like it's showing in your work. So like, just wanted to give you props on the continued improvement in there. Great job. Being able to, one of the coolest things about doing this is being able to see photographers improve. So that's awesome. I love seeing it happen, and it's been a clear progression in your work. I think that you've been improving. So the hard work I'm sure you're putting in is paying off. That said, let's get into ways that the shot could be improved. I think my like biggest problem with this shot is the overall composition. I think kind of like there's this crouched pose which you kind of are because of the angle and the tall grass, you're losing a lot of context of their body. So like especially with the back leg and mixing with the torso, I have a kind of hard time differentiating it. So like I don't know how an elegant way to put this is kind of their body feels like it's just mashed together in a single blob. And it's just because the angle and the way the fabric's going and the pose and the tall grass just all created that.
Well, I think if they just sat up a little bit, like straightened up a little bit more, that would have helped a lot. Because right now it feels like they're like slouching versus crouching, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I Yeah, I agree with that. I do really like the intensity of her face, though. Like,
Yeah,
it's
those visuals are just
selling
great.
it very well in that I still feel like she's just gonna get up and
Kill
do
you.
something. Like, there's an intensity there of like
Yeah.
purpose.
I
But I agree
I
with you
do
that the
like
body needs a little bit
with
more
that thought. I
pose
wish
depth.
that her arm that was pulling on the staff was a little bit further out. That kind of would sell the action a bit more too.
Where you get that
Um,
window,
yeah.
really nice.
But I think compositionally, though, my part of the other problem I have is just everything is weighted so heavily to the left of this frame. I think this is a good. If you put her on the other third of the image, I think it would balance a little bit more. I just feel like the action is headed out of the frame, albeit her look does bring it back into the frame a little bit, but like overall I feel like my eyes want to leave the frame with kind of where the action is headed. Like just everything kind of feels like it's pointing out of the frame to the left here. And I
I hear
think
what you're saying, but I don't totally agree. Like, I feel like just cropping out a little bit of the right side of the image, maybe straightening that horizon while you're at it, would kind of alleviate the sense of imbalance towards the bottom left corner, because her eyes and her expression and the path of that stick do lead, for me, they're bringing my attention back towards the right. I agree
I
that
don't
there's a sense
disagree.
of
Yeah.
imbalance there.
I
they're
don't
leaning more to the
agree,
right.
or I don't disagree with that, and I think if you cropped it and you put like her head onto a third, because right now her
Yeah.
head is kind of like in between the left third in the image and the edge of the image, and I think that is the most weight of the image is past the left third of the image, and if you can just bring that balance onto the left third,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
totally fair.
yeah.
I think that's a better way of phrasing what we were both trying to say.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think we were entirely in agreement the whole time, just
Yeah,
had like
yeah.
awkward ways of putting it.
Yeah, I think we were both thinking of different solutions rather than just
Yeah.
trying to like
Yeah.
articulate what is
I did
like
a quick like
not
just
reasonable.
subtle example crop of kind of what we were talking about. If we cropped
Mhm.
it to put the head on the third, I think it balances out, and you have like that way the triangle kind of creates like the frame works in a triangle where the head goes down to the body here and back up the bow staff. Works like a nice yeah.
Yeah, I think there's multiple ways to like work with that. But there is just kind of like a little bit of imbalance of the visual weight here.
um something I really dig, which I think is especially hard to get in an open field, is the lighting on her looks really nice.
Yeah, right.
She's got nice catch lights in her eyes. She's got nice lighting on her body. Like that's especially difficult in these when you're working in a field where like oftentimes the lighting just is not what you want.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. There's a lot that I like about this image overall. I feel like we covered most of my pros and cons.
Oh my god, it was shot at noon.
that
What the
makes
hell?
I'm
Expected that.
literally confused by that. Like
Yeah,
Was it
wow.
overcast? I
I
was on
don't
clouds in the background, but
I
Oh, passing cloud went by.
yeah,
Nice. Damn,
even
you lucked
then
out.
I have a hard time. Like I
Yeah.
believe you, Maddie, but at the same time I'm like so conflicted because this does not, even with like it being under a cloud, this still doesn't look like noon light.
I'm impressed.
the light overall looks very soft and diffused. The only giveaway I would
Yeah.
say is the darkness of the shadows on the far side
Yeah.
of her face. It's the only hint that the sun was that bright, but that looks
Mhm.
really nice. You did a nice job
Yeah,
working with
for
Yeah.
shooting at noon, hot diggity damn, you did good.
I just
Yeah.
avoid that altogether because I'm like, fuck this.
Yeah.
It's gonna look like shit.
Mhm.
Nice.
Cool. With that, you guys got any other thoughts, or we'll move on to the next shot?
I'm good.
Cool. Okay, this next
Ew.
one is from
This is
everyone's
by
least favorite person,
Days on Hikari.
Gross.
Neil Bonabon.
Neil Bonabon. He's not even at his computer. He's watching from his bed right now.
Probably too busy paying attention to Naruto. You laugh because it's true.
I know, he's probably watching it.
Yeah. Mallow says he's the next Hokage. Yet to be seen.
No, next Hokage. Fuck Neo.
Okay,
Go
before we
ahead,
totally
Let me get
just
the
right.
photo.
Let's talk about a photo. You know what we do on the photo critiques?
It's disgusting.
I think this is me. Yeah, this is me.
Yeah.
I really, really like where this photo is going. The composite work here and the attempts to do some of the things that Neil was going for in this shot is super difficult. I think there's some ways that they could be improved, but overall, like especially at first glance, I'm super impressed with them. So major props. My like even with like me thinking that there's small ways that the things need to be improved with the compositing, I think they are less of an issue than some of my other thoughts on the image. As Neil said, those gold tears are a bitch. Yeah, I totally would believe that. They look like those would have been.
Is that totally composited? That's not something that was
it's totally
present.
composited.
Yeah, all of this is composited.
Yeah, all the cracks on the face and the gold tears are all composited in.
Yeah, I just zoomed in a little bit, and I think it's really nicely done overall.
Yeah, no, like I think that like the shadows on the cracks on the cheek, like they need to be a little bit darker, and like I shouldn't necessarily see the texture underneath it where the crack is, because it should be indented, yet I can still see like the texture there.
Talking about the right side?
Yeah, on the right side cracks, and then like even on the left side, there's still like some spots there that I think that you should go a little bit darker, or at least have more shadow.
Yeah, there's a few spots where it looks a little flat, but I really like that kind of clear glow overall. That part looks
especially
really
like viewing it from like full screen, like pretty much everyone will be. It reads super convincingly.
Yeah.
So like
I just say from like a symbolic standpoint, I love consideration showing the phospholite on the left side of the cracks. This thing.
Yeah, so like great on that. I wouldn't have picked up on that, but Sarah, I'm glad you could bring that context.
Yeah.
So I think for me, my biggest problem with this shot comes from the lighting. I feel like the left and right corners are fighting for attention in this shot, and is kind of winning out a little bit over the cosplayer.
Wait, the what colors?
The highlights. The left corner and the right corner, bottom left, top right corners. Both are really bright, and I don't necessarily dislike one or the other. I think it's just the combination of both being on juxtaposed sides, and like having the cosplayer being kind of a darker spot in the middle kind of makes my eye like pass over the cosplayer somewhat and bounce between those two highlight sections. I kind of I don't know how this photo was taken, if the bottom right corner was an overlay, or the top right was as strong, but I think maybe just toning one or the other down a little bit could help bring a little bit more balance to the shot. Like it just is like those two corners are just shouting a little bit too much at me. That makes sense.
I'm curious, is this kind of lens flare distortion in the lower left, is that entirely a part of the composite image, or is that something that was shot like with an extra like glass lens outside or like prism or type of, is it?
Knowing Neil, I think it was composited
It's,
in.
it's composited.
Yeah.
I was
Very
there.
Okay. That was leading into my next comment about it, which is that I wish we could see just a little bit more of this of the second eye, the lower eye, the darker one. I get that it's supposed to be kind of unresolved and there's creepy kind of like ambiguousness to it, but I think that getting a little bit more visibility in that other eye will make the character more compelling and more arresting, and that you see it as more of like a something worth stopping your attention.
I want to follow up
What
with
you're
that
saying about
comment.
the kind of the bright spots in the two corners being a little bit more overwhelming of the attention, and I think that bringing a little bit more focus and clarity to that eye would help.
I agree. Also goes from another symbolic standpoint is she gets the white eye, which is like from the moon, from a different character, but her original eye color is blue. So just visually, that is like an important like thing to this character. So just to emphasize that being able to see more of that blue eye and those two different colors would help tell the story more.
I like how much of the character is blurred out and not quite like fully in focus, and how much that is left up to the imagination. I just think the eye itself is a little bit more important. We need to see.
I agree.
Totally agree on that. I just think it's just like overpowering it just a bit too much.
Like literally just like drop it.
I really love the clear focus and the little details of the light that's hitting this ascot or whatever, the folds of the fabric in the front, and the way that you can see the kind of like the glitter fibers of it. It's just lovely. I love it because so much of the image, like the focus is so fun here. Like you've nailed it in these really important spots, and then letting it drift out of focus to the side. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
So there's one thing that I'd be just would be in trouble if I didn't mention, which is the angle. How do you guys feel about this Dutch angle?
I like it. It's effective.
I do like it in the shot.
I like it. It's applied in an appropriate manner.
I like how he composited in this Dutch angle. I think
oh, wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah, I think maybe I wish she was moved up in the frame a little bit more. I'm kind of thinking like compositionally for this. Maybe if this like a little bit of the top of the frame were cut down a little bit. I think that could work.
It's something you guys say like once per episode at least, is I think this would look really nice as a 16 by 9.
Yeah. This one's not quite 16 by 9 to get territory. This is like 16 by 10, maybe 16 by 9. Fuck it, 16 by 9.
But I agree. Like either some of the top space cropped, or even just I don't know if you're able to crop it out more, because I do feel like compositionally it feels oddly zoomed in, but I'm not really sure why. I
think we could lose a little bit of
Neil.
And maybe extend the sides some, since I know a lot of it is composited anyway. You could probably do that.
You know what? Just put in a whole new fucking background. Just, redo it.
Yeah, and then take out the subject, put in a whole new subject. And just
easy for you.
No, this is wonderful.
Neil, we're just being shitty towards you.
Yeah, we're being shitty because we love.
He's too busy watching Naruto. He's not even freaking responding.
Yeah. Fucking Naruto.
Nerd.
Weeb. Okay, we have any other thoughts on this before Neil comes back and is telling us that he composited more shit or something?
I think this is really nice.
Yeah, I think.
I can't wait to see this entire set. It's gonna be dope as fuck.
Yeah, if this is just a work in progress, I'm really excited to see his final version.
Basically, this entire set's gonna be just baller. Get ready.
So-
Mallow.
Before Mallow's just gonna get like kicked here or something because she's going ridiculous. Couple things before we move on to the next image. Arlie, thank you so much for the $25 donation.
What?
Really appreciate
Dude,
it. You're
Nice.
awesome, and we love you. So thank you so much for being
Oh,
great.
you just reached the donation goal.
Yeah, and oh shit, we did. Yeah, no, we hit the donation goal. There's something I was planning on doing with the donation goal that I can't anymore, and I can't say anything right now about that. But it'll be clear in like a week or two, so I'll leave it at that.
Oh,
So
surprise.
yeah, so yeah.
Oh no.
Nothing bad. Then other things. NetJack, thanks for gifting that gift sub to Mason Hikari. Hopefully he actually uses it. Lol. And then Ginny Liz, thank you for the additional 4 bits.
Mallow says you're buying a Dutch angle body pillow.
Oh my god! If only. If only.
I would die. Oh my god, that'd be so funny. I don't even know what that would be.
I don't know what that means, but I like Topher's idea of Dutch angle webcams. Just
Ew.
like Dutch
Disgusting.
angle my webcam the entire stream. Just
I'm ready.
God.
I'm dead.
That's a terrible idea. Let's not. Okay, before we totally just go off, we've got one more image to go. One more.
Last one, made it.
We can do this. Final stretch. Okay. This last image is from Victoria, and Sarah, you're going to take us away for the final shot here.
Cool. Occupymeister hasn't submitted in a while.
Yeah, I'm questioning. I feel like she submitted to one of the very first streams we did.
Like quite a few times, in a row, from what I remember, and then she kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
And
So
then
welcome back. Welcome back.
This is great. I have to say though, this is a very big improvement from her last image. From what I remember critiquing, it was in the woods, and it was kind of really dark, and it was I can't really remember. But I really like the lighting in this photo and the way that it's hitting the cosplayer's face. I think it's super stunning. Damn, that highlight is on point. And also the highlights in her eyes are really, really nice. So overall, I think the lighting is beautiful, and I like the subtle pink toning that they gave to the photo as well. It doesn't there's not too much of it, because sometimes I'm not good with red, so sometimes I feel color grading with pinks and reds is really hard to do. So I think they did a good job at moderating it, as well as adding some blues to the green, so they're not that yellow green color that we're used to seeing right off the bat. That being said, though, I noticed that they added these sparkly effects on, so they don't look very sparkly. They kind of look paint splatters or something. I'm not really sure what layer style this was, or blending mode it was.
I didn't notice those up until now. Dang. Yeah. No, totally.
They just have a lowered opacity that they.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think it's probably normal layer style, just lower opacity.
I recommend putting these things on screen usually, when you're doing glittery bokeh effects. Screen or light in is a good option just to give it that glow, because right now they just feel kind of flat.
So, sometimes overlay can work for those pretty well too. Depends what feel you want to go for.
Yeah, because right now they're just kind of flat and not very sparkly. So I would try that.
Yeah, they need to be brighter rather than just more saturated.
Yes.
Yeah, they need to be. If they are trying to be a point of light, like they are sparkles that are emitting light, then they need to have white at the center.
That's a good point.
Yeah, something Mallow mentioned, and I would agree with, is that she said that she shouldn't have clipped off the wing, and I agree. Just if you zoomed out just a little bit, and you could get the entirety of that wing that's kind of coming out of her head there. If you can just fully have that.
I feel like the image as a whole is kind of heavily weighted to that upper left corner.
Yes.
I think that I wish that we got a little bit wider shot of
Yeah.
showing a little bit more where she's less, like she seems almost like scrunched into that corner when I wish that her body
Yeah.
was more in the
Yeah.
lower corner.
If you just zoomed out this shot, I don't think you need to change much. Just zoom it out a little bit and kind of like have more to the left and the top of this image, and that would work perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I love the softness of the image though, and the kind of the greens and the pinks play really nicely together. It just had like an overall nice feeling to it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
I have a note about the cosplayer's pose.
Go ahead.
I think her face is nice. She's got like an openness in her expression, and like a cute smile. But I think that the hunched shoulders kind of read as being more uncomfortable, and to try to relax and have the arms brought out a little bit would make her look more natural and comfortable. So I think that's maybe some direction that the photographer could give in the moment that would help. But her face is, or like her expression is nice. I think she's
Yeah,
really selling.
I think it's hard when you kind of have that chin directly in front of the neck like that, though. Like it's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like maybe if you had eye contact's the same, but like shift the jaw just a little bit over so that her chin isn't like kind of perfectly in line with her neck like that. Just kind of adds a little bit more dimensionality. Also, I'm also a big fan of neck tilts. Like especially for a fairy, like a neck tilt would kind of feel like it would fit that character. So just tilt that neck a little bit.
Tiny bit, yeah.
I agree. Or to have her looking like down, very fairy-like.
Oh, that would have been pretty too.
I don't know.
That said, I would like it looking down, but like the catchlight in her eyes is so good that I kind of don't want to like lose that.
Yeah, I think her face and expression is really nice. I just feel like the pose could have been tweaked to kind of bring more out of it, because she does look very flattened, and her arms are flat against her, and even though she's sitting, like you said, her neck is like posed over her head is like straight over the neck, and then her body, like even though she's sitting at an angle, like it looks almost like flattened out vertically. Yeah. So I just think that working with the cosplayer position and the angle somehow to bring in a little bit more.
The more I'm thinking about it too, the hands, if you can get them kind of like, instead of them straight down, if you could get them like out and back a little bit more so that you can get that the curve of her side in the image as well. Because like
I'm like posing.
Yeah, I know. I'm doing that too. My camera's too zoomed in. I'm like doing like the yeah.
Yeah, to try to create a body line where you get the definition where the arms aren't like crunched against you, to kind of create space and to show the shape.
And create those shapes, exactly.
There's a lot of different ways to do that, and there's a lot of ways that you could position her, talk to her to accomplish that. But I just think that that's the general principle to apply to this type of situation.
Yeah, it's hard. Like I think also even like barring moving that, if you can just roll her shoulders back a little bit, her shoulders kind of feel like a little forward to me. Just like kind of rolling them back and giving it a little better posture, I think would help. Any other thoughts on this one, or we about to wrap it up?
Those are the main things.
I think it was good.
Yeah.
She's improved a lot, I think.
I think the contrast in the face is a little strong between like the highlight and shadows, and that might just be makeup. It might just be the makeup is not fully blended, because it seems like overall the exposure and the contrast in the skin is good. I would do a little bit of retouching just to kind of give a little bit more blur between like the intense. It's a zinger, as we call it in the painting world. Theatrical painting is the most intense highlight is called a zinger.
A zinger?
Yeah, a zinger.
That's cute.
So that to be softened and blended and into the shadow that's the underside of that contour, just to soften it and blend it a little bit. I think be generally good, but yeah.
Okay. With that was the final image of the critique. That wraps us up. Let's see here. I'm trying to think if I have any closing things. Nope, I think I pretty much said everything I needed to say up front in terms of like details. Thank you so much, Heidi, for being on the stream. It was awesome having you.
I hope you had fun.
Yeah.
This is like my favorite show. I've watched every episode.
Is it disappointing that you can't watch the show while you're on it then?
I'm gonna watch this later. No, probably not.
God.
Probably
Yeah, I
Like,
can't.
I hate watching myself.
Can't watch it.
I'll rewatch all the other episodes.
Dude, I watch it when I try and rewatch it. I'm just like, who the fuck is this guy? He's so annoying. Ugh.
I tried rewatching the
God,
first
his
one and I was
opinions
like, wow.
suck.
Instant regret.
Yeah, I can't rewatch this shit. Nope.
Worse.
Yeah, and it was awesome having you on. It was kind of you're one of the people that when we initially thought about bringing cosplayers on, you were at the very top of that list. So it was awesome to be able to make that happen.
Yeah.
Thanks for it.
Thank you for coming.
Where can people find your work across the interwebs?
I am Atelier Heidi everywhere. I'm just going to write it in the chat. My username, it's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything.
Brand consistency.
Yeah, I got that brand consistency. And I do a little bit of everything. I'm a craftsperson and a cosplayer and a photographer / editor.
BestZeldaCosplayer.com says
I don't make that claim.
Just kind of on the similar thought, are you attending any cons in the near future that people might be able to find you at?
I'm going to TwitchCon. If anybody wants to see me at TwitchCon, let me know. If any photographers want to work with me as a cosplayer at TwitchCon, let me know.
I wish.
Same wish.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's see, Sarah. Anywhere people can find you?
Instagram.
Any cons you're attending soon?
I might be trying to attend Anime USA in a couple weeks. Depends. I'm going on a big trip soon, so it depends if I'm all packed and got my shit ready or not. Let's see. But
you guys know where to find me by now. I am on Instagram at Vontog, on Facebook at Vontography, and obviously on Twitch. Come watch me here.
Please don't message me on Facebook, guys. See it.
Yeah, so next critique will be happening. Let's see here. I'm gonna just switch to that screen so I can actually remember what it is. Next critique is happening on October 18th. That is back to a Thursday. And that is going to feature Topher Oriel. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right, but I don't know that for certain.
I was going to suggest him. I was like, you should have Topher as a guest. He works with lights.
So we will be having him on for the next critique. That'll be October 18th at 7 p.m. So look forward to that. Yeah, so that should be good. Oh, sweet, I pronounced it right.
Nice.
Other thoughts. The following critique after the one with Topher will be a very interesting and special critique. You guys should be looking forward to that. It'll be a fun time. So I'll keep that under wraps for now, but get hyped for that critique as well. It's gonna be
lit.
It's gonna be wonderful. With that, as always, all your donations and subs are greatly appreciated. I want to say if you have Twitch Prime or Amazon Prime and you're not using your sub, why not here? why not, right?
I gave you my Twitch Prime sub.
Sarah needs to figure out how to link her goddamn Twitch Prime account
It
because
won't
Amazon just
work.
is being a bitch to her.
It's so dumb.
Yeah. So, yeah, if all donate, you do not have to donate, but they're greatly appreciated.
Seriously, guys, the donations this time were
you guys were awesome.
Thank you.
Ara Lee, Ginny Liz, and Diegas, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for donating. Greatly appreciate that. As always, if you have a guest that you want to see on the critique, feel free to submit them. I posted the link to the submission there. As well as if you want to submit to the next critique in terms of photos, I posted the submission form there. I think that's everything. Yeah. I think that's everything. So that is a wrap.
Yeah. Thanks everyone.
Thanks so much for everyone here that's been chatting and being wonderful. You're awesome, and you guys help making this as awesome as it is. Thanks to everyone in the chat except Mallow.
I don't think Mallow personally. I love you, Mallow.
We love Mallow. She keeps the chat alive.
All right.
Okay. With that, guys, we are going to call it a night. Have an awesome rest of your week and see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.